What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 9 Knots Chapter 166 Anbu's transformation inside the huge Hokage building. It was a little quiet for a while. After Hyuga Hiyashi completed the task given by Haruki, he sat back down again. Even Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu, who were opposed to it, hesitated. As Hokage consultants, it would be impossible for them to have no further ideas. But Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo were pressed on top, and they hardly had any chance. Now that two people disappeared, they happened to be in their prime of life, and it was not too late in their 40s. Haruki looked around for a week and couldn't help smiling when he noticed the expressions of the two people who were hesitant to talk. According to his new Hokage selection method, they are eligible to participate, and even have a high probability of becoming Hokage candidates. After all, Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu are not weak, and they have been in business for so many years, and they are quite prestigious in Konoha. But it's a pity that no matter how they tried their best, they couldn't pass the last hurdle. Tsunade became Hokage, and it was destined. The reason why Haruki took this opportunity to implement the new selection method is because it took this opportunity to carry out the census and departmental reforms, and by the way, everyone was psychologically prepared, and the next Hokage selection will be familiar. Two consultants, what do you think? Is it based on the same line of selection, or is it a new set of methods? He picked up the information on the desktop and said casually, if you follow the original, two people can draw up nominations, such as the 3 apprentices of Lord Hokage. Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu looked at each other and exchanged in an instant. As friends and teammates for many years, they understand what each other means. The old method of selection means that they have lost their opportunity. After all, they are too old to give way to young people. Besides, Sanin is stronger than them, and to nominate myself, there is no silver 300 taels here. But the new system is different, they can be manipulated completely. It was proposed by others, but it was reluctant to accept it by myself. As for the possibility of losing the election, it is natural, but in their opinion, isn't Haruki's selection method a competition for contacts? If they bribe the big ninja tribes with great profits, their chances of winning will be greatly increased. We agree with the new Hokage selection method, Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu said in unison. Their education and thinking determined their vision. The position of Hokage made them lose their calm thinking. Haruki naturally wouldn't explain it much. The new system means a sinking choice. It is not the former Hokage or Konoha high-rise that determines the location of Hokage, but the residents of all Konoha. It turns out that as long as you have the strength, you don't need to worry about anything. There are many things you have to do now, not only to have the ability, but also to convince the residents of Konoha. Whether it is true or false, it means that any ninja who becomes Hokage must serve Konoha and all the residents before that. During the war, strength alone can attract people. But what about the peaceful years? Rely on bribery is impossible. Because those who have come to the Hokage candidate, no matter whether it is a ninja or a commoner, will not give up the opportunity of Hokage. Even without Haruki's prior cooperation, it would be harder for these two Hokage consultants to buy most of the people. Of course you have the power to suppress everything and explode everything, no matter what, it is of no use to you. Fortunately, there is no such person. This concludes today's meeting. Haruki stood up. In fact, he still had a lot of things to be changed, but he couldn't rush it. Any reform that was too fast in the previous life will ultimately result in failure. He intends to implement all policies as much as possible in the years before the Third Ninja War. Next time I look forward to seeing you at the meeting of the policy department. Haruki smiled. All of you here are Jonin, all Konoha's mainstays, and most of them will become members of the policy department. However, his next reforms will try to change the situation where strength is respected. The initial idea is to regard the ninja rank as the title of the previous life. Everyone left one after another. Tsunade, you go to post the content of today's meeting, warm up for 2 days, so that the residents of Konoha can accept it. After Haruki confessed to Tsunade, he didn't stay. He had one more thing, the handling of Anbu and the roots. Konoha's Anbu has a total establishment of 70 people. In addition to the captain and deputy captain, it is divided into 4 teams, each with 17 people. The root is actually equivalent to an Anbu team, with only 17 people. Now the roots are cancelled, and most of them returned to Anbu, including several roots that accompanied Danzo to escape. After Haruki entered the hall, 61 Anbu and the rooted ninjas who were waiting restlessly looked at him. The so-called emperor and courtier. After the death of third Hokage, whether Anbu will be cancelled or whether the personnel will be changed are all questions. The most worrying thing is to follow Danzo's roots. Danzo was put to death for betraying the village. Logically, they were considered accomplices. I will not liquidate you. Haruki looked at them. Since they were at the base, none of them were wearing masks, and their expressions were clear. Whether it's Anbu or the roots, in the final analysis, it's obedience to orders. He didn't need to kill them all, but you need to train again. No ninja disagrees. As long as they can save their lives, training does not matter. Even the roots have survived this life-threatening training. There is no reason to train more difficult. The organization of the routes is cancelled, integrated into Anbu, and tentatively set to 5 teams, the same as before. However, we need to implement a new assessment mechanism. Haruki has learned about Anbu and routes assessment, or remuneration, just like a normal ninja, accepting tasks and earning money. He plans to set up a department and pay monthly wages. But Konoha's official mission will not be paid. After Haruki counted Anbu's number of tasks and average remuneration, he set a basic salary and gave a performance appraisal mechanism. Is there a problem? He spent nearly an hour explaining in detail the specific assessment mechanism. Everyone present showed contemplation. This kind of monthly remuneration is not without, but most of them are commercial employment. Besides, it is very different from what they understand. Especially this special performance appraisal mechanism. Haruki waited for a while, no one asked. In the absence of frequent wars, this mechanism is undoubtedly more suitable for them. In addition, non-Konoha official tasks can be accepted as usual and paid. Haruki thought for a while, and added, if there is a war with the enemy village, there will be an additional compensation mechanism. Specifically, I will draft the terms. As a result, no one expressed opposition. It is a lucky thing to be able to obtain a stable source of income, whether it is a ninja or a civilian. In the past, it was too uncertain to rely solely on tasks. Shinji Hira, you will be the captain of Anbu from now on, and you will train them next. Okay, Haruki-sama. Shinji Hira walked to the stage with the shocked expressions of several of his colleagues. Today's training is Q training. Haruki patted him on the shoulder and left the Anbu hall. In addition to Q training, Shinji Hira also teaches them. As the most confidential intelligence department, Anbu must conform to the Sha organization's philosophy. If not, Haruki can only sweep them out. This process may take a long time, but he is not in a hurry. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 167 4th Hokage Tsunade. After the new Hokage recommendation method was posted, Konoha suddenly became lively. After all, it was the first time. Not only Jonin, but all residents, are eligible to decide who is Hokage. However, it hasn't been more than half a day. Just during the warm-up period, some of them were bribed by unknown forces. Haruki was not surprised. He immediately ordered the Uchiha and Hyuga clan to jointly set up a vote scrutiny department. Once detected, both parties will lose their right to vote and the right to be voted for life. The effect is immediate. 2 great blood successors, Byakugan and Sharingan, no one can get lucky. Haruki announced again that all votes were anonymous. Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu, who spent a lot of money, immediately fell into a deadlock. Voting anonymously, they have no guarantee at all, and they cannot see the result of the vote. It is simply not clear whether the person they bribed has voted for them. While Konoha village was in full swing about Hokage candidates, Haruki was in the process of setting up the Human Resources Department. Because it involves the task of the census, this department is imminent. Fortunately, the Sha organization originally had a scientific research group on computers and networks. At least the computer center is not worried. After Haruki's consideration, Nara Shikape was appointed as minister for the time being. Nara Lupping is the current patriarch of the Nara clan. He was originally one of the secretary and think tanks of Hokage, the 15-year-old father of Nara Shikamaru, and the unborn grandfather of Nara Shikamaru. As the smartest Nara clan, they understand the census mentioned by Haruki well. Using the clone technique, the investigation was started from house to house. Haruki also joined them. Although Konoha is said to be a village, the population is not large, estimated to be close to 100,000. It is very difficult to find out in just a few days. But fortunately, there is a skill like clone technique. 3 days later, Haruki got a specific number, and Konoha had 95,000 residents. Not too much, not too little. Besides, the Second Ninja World War had just ended, otherwise, it would definitely exceed 100,000 people. According to the calculation of 100,000 people, Haruki divided Konoha into 10 regions and started the first round of selection. The so-called policy department, they will represent the interests of the entire Konoha residents. After a mighty week, the policy department has 1,000 members. Among them, 80% are ninjas and 20% are ordinary civilians. And only 30% of these 80% ninjas are Jonin, in other words about 300. Many Jonin were not selected due to reputation issues. Haruki did not make adjustments, and Jonin, who was unsuccessful, had other places of his own. On the first day of the establishment of the policy department, the first meeting was held. 2 things. The first thing is to select the executive department, and the second thing is to put forward the Hokage list. Under Haruki's supervision, the first meeting lasted for 2 full days. 2 things were finally completed. Due to Haruki's restrictions, no matter whether it is the executive department or the Hokage list, the same ninja cannot exceed 3. Next I announce the shortlist of Hokage candidates: Haruki, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Hitaki Tsukumo, Uchiha Mikoto, Hyuga Hiyashi, Mitokado Homura, Nara Shikahira, Sarutobi Nagai. There are 10 people in total, generally speaking, in Haruki's expectation. The first 5 people all had outstanding performances in the last war and were given various titles. Uchiha Makoto and Hyuga Hiyashi are the result of the efforts of the two families of Konoha. Mitokado Homura is the network of two Hokage consultants. As for why there is no Utatane Kaharu, Haruki's rules lead to it. Nara Lupping was introduced by the Ino Shika Cho tribe. Sarutobi Chongjing was selected by the Sarutobi and Shimura clan. Next, the executive department will vote to determine the final candidate for Hokage, but since some of the candidates for Hokage overlap with the executive department members, they cannot vote for themselves. After Haruki finished speaking, Shinji Hira, who was behind him, immediately took out the votes he had prepared in advance. He also got one himself. Write down Tsunade's name, then fold it and pass it to Hira Shinji. The same is taken anonymously. Hira Shinji quickly collected all 30 votes and began to vote. In the stunned expressions of Mitokado Homura and Utatane Kaharu, Tsunade passed almost unanimously. This is impossible. Haruki narrowed his eyes and looked at Mitokado Homura, who was talking. Do you want to question the results of the executive department? If you don't give a reasonable explanation, it will be deemed invalid. Mitokado Homura opened his mouth. What should he say? For a total of 30 people, only he and Utatane Kaharu voted for themselves, and all others were Tsunade. No matter how you look at it, it's all negotiated. Mitokado Homura was silent suddenly. He was afraid that he would be gone when he opened his mouth. Upon seeing this, Haruki said, "It seems that Master Homura has no objection, so Tsunade will be the fourth Hokage." He got up and stepped aside. Tsunade took a deep breath and came to the center. She suddenly thought that she might be the only ninja who became Hokage by her husband, right? Haruki took the opportunity to applaud. The quiet conference hall suddenly became lively. Tsunade glanced at Haruki, regained his senses, raised his hand, and the applause stopped. She had a moment of contemplation, not knowing what to say. Tsunade gave a light cough and said, "Thank you for your trust in me. In the future, I will prove by my behavior that I hope to build Konoha better and stronger with everyone." Haruki couldn't help holding his forehead. This acceptance speech is too simple. But Tsunade didn't notice it. Hokage is one of her dreams. He was heavily influenced by Senju Hashirama and Senju Tobarama when he was young. To be a Hokage now is not to fail them. The meeting ended and everyone was happy. The first thing Tsunade did was to appoint Haruki as Hokage's secretary and Hokage's assistant. In fact, Haruki originally belonged to these two positions. But Tsunade said that it was the third generation before and now it is the fourth generation. Women always seem to be extra serious in some names. Haruki naturally has no opinions. The so-called 3 fires for new officials. Tsunade began to reorganize the department, mainly the combination of Summer Tissue and Konoha. One is to form a coalition of ninjas. Before that, ninjas belonged to a loose profession and were only recruited during the war. And now Tsunade and Haruki will be trained and organized in the same way as the new army. The second is the establishment of the education department. There is only a ninja school, which simply cannot meet the needs of education. The Ministry of Education will establish a number of new schools, including middle schools and universities. It is divided into ninja school and ordinary school. And expand the scope of enrollment to the entire country of fire. Especially the ninja school. At that time, special teams will be organized to recruit civilians with ninja talents in various places in the country of fire. The third is to fully implement the performance appraisal mechanism. All departments will not be limited to ninjas, ordinary civilians can also enter. The way to enter is to recruit and test in a unified way. The content involves Shaw's-related theories and administrative ability tests. The previous department members also need to take an exam. And Tsunade is a trinity, and he is also Hokage, the commander of the Ninja Alliance, and the leader of the Shaw organization. Become a well-deserved queen. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 168 Hokage's Man. Why give me the position of the leader of the Shaw organization? Tsunade was sitting in Hokage's office and took off the god's hat. She looked at Haruki, and she didn't quite understand it. Just before, their Shaw organization held a temporary meeting, and Haruki announced that she would be the leader of the Shaw organization, and she became the deputy leader. You currently hold 3 positions concurrently. Which one do you think is the first? Haruki got up, walked in front of her, leaned on the corner of the table, and looked at her. Because it is standing, the majestic scenery is unobstructed. Tsunade didn't care about his random glances. They were old husbands and wives, so it was nothing cheap. She lowered her head to think about Haruki's problem. She originally intended to answer Hokage, but then she realized something was wrong. It should be the leader of the Shaw organization. Yes, there is progress. Haruki's expression was a little surprised. He rubbed Tsunade's blonde hair with his hand and said, "The Shaw organization represents the mind, the new wolf fire, and Hokage is the executor. Only by ensuring the correctness of the thought can we guarantee the Wood Yi's future direction." In other words, the future Hokage must be the leader of the Shaw organization? Tsunade asked inferences about it. Yes. The new Hokage selection method guarantees Hokage's reputation as much as possible. After all, only 3 groups of ninjas, civilian ninjas, and ordinary residents are eligible to be candidates for Hokage, but starting from the second term, 1 will be added. During the session, the leader of the Sha organization was changed. All Hokage candidates must be a qualified member of the Sha organization, and only after becoming the leader of the Sha organization can they assume the position of Hokage. Compared with the original Hokage system, it is almost completely different, Tsunade said in a deep thought, but now it is more reasonable and safer, so that people with wrong intentions will be able to ascend the position of Hokage by virtue of their strength. Haruki nodded. What he can do has been done. When he and Tsunade leave in the future, the only thing left is Konoha's own development. But after the framework is completed, this process is almost impossible to appear mediocre. And in his opinion, becoming the leader of the Sha organization is much more difficult than Hokage. Why do I have to be the commander of the Ninja Alliance? Didn't you let Minato take the post? Tsunade continued her question. Although she led the various measures this month, Haruki actually operated it. In addition, many concepts and operations are too forward, and it is difficult for her to fully understand. Minato's new army is an ordinary army. Although it uses new weapons, it is not as good as the Jonin's army in general. Now you have formed an army after Hokage, which includes a pure ninja army and has been remodeled. The model of 3-person team is no longer used, but divided by chakra attributes, which is more disciplined and professional. Minato is in charge of all the army, and there is no problem, but if he is replaced by a stranger in the future, he can use the army to directly replace a Hokage. Hokage can only take control of Konoha with the master of the army. Even if the Uchiha clan rebels in the future, you don't need to be afraid. Haruki explained to her. Countless history has proved the terrible nature of the army not being deployed. If the ninja is trained in the way of the army, the destructive power will be even more amazing. I see. Although there has never been an army mutiny in the past, Haruki has no reason to say it. Tsunade thought slightly, and asked, I am currently holding 3 positions. Isn't it amazing that I have so much power? No one can stop what I want. What's the matter? Haruki couldn't help but squeeze her face. Do you want to be a feint-kun? Every day? Impossible. Tsunade gave him a blank look. I was thinking about Hokage later. Why can't you stop it? All your decisions must be approved by the Sha organization, the policy department and the executive department. If they are too excessive, they can't let you go crazy. Unless you are strong enough to ignore them, then you can do whatever you want. Ah, this is basically hopeless. There seems to be a pity in Tsunade's words. The Sha organization and the 2 departments have almost included all the top Jonin of Konoha, such as Uchiha Makoto, Namikaze Minato, Hyuga Hiyashi, Hitaki Tsukumo, etc. It is difficult for her to imagine anyone can beat them. You really had this idea. Haruki knocked her head in surprise. It looks like you have swelled after becoming Hokage. Hey. Tsunade laughed twice, changed the subject, and said, we should go home for dinner. No hurry. Haruki held her soft waist with both hands, picked it up firmly, and placed it on the desk. What are you doing? Tsunade didn't understand, but immediately felt that his imperial robe was lifted, and couldn't help holding his hands. Hey, this is Hokage's office, and I'm Hokage, you should listen to me obediently, go back and do this kind of thing. After all, she didn't quite understand Haruki's evil taste, and her face turned red and refused. It's off work, and I'm Hokage's man, Haruki answered seriously. Tsunade hugged his neck and said softly, then you hurry up. At the same time Haruki and Tsunade are in the office to discuss the relationship between husband and wife. There is another person in Konoha village who is equally excited, Kakuzu. The month of January has come. He can leave Konoha tomorrow. Kakuzu's time was extremely regular, and his hands were itchy when he didn't mess up. Apart from serving as teachers for Kakashi and Obito every day, I just wander around. But I have to say that Konoha's changes surprised him. Kakuzu walked to the streets of Akihabara, known as the 9th district. The road was wide enough for more than a dozen carriages to pass through, and there were monitoring devices everywhere. Except for Haruki, the reason why he is safe is because of this ubiquitous monitoring. I heard that it is a surveillance network formed by the Ninja and the Science and Technology Research Department using the so-called local area network. Chakra is not needed, so it is difficult for a ninja to detect it, so you can take pictures of your actions without making a sound. Of course, Kakuzu didn't want to get involved in Konoha, he just didn't do the bounty task for a long time, and he was not used to it. He glanced at the time, it was close to noon. After thinking about it, I planned to eat hot pot. Hot pot restaurant opened by Haruki. Kakuzu originally refused, but it was too fragrant and smelled the fragrance all the way. I couldn't help but tasted it once, but I didn't expect it to be quite delicious. Today Konoha Savings Bank launched a new business. What business? Fixed deposits. According to their instructions, the longer you save, the higher the annual interest rate. The highest is the 5-year lump sum deposit, and you can get an annual interest rate of 2.75%. In other words, if I deposit 100,000 taels, I will make 13,750 yuan in vain after 5 years. Yes. Kakuzu heard this conversation and suddenly raised his head. He was chewing beef balls, but his eyes were horribly bright. This fixed deposit is simply tailor-made for him. He lacks everything except money and time. Kakuzu stood up and decided to take a look at the so-called Konoha Savings Bank. He asked the two of them, "Where is the Konoha Savings Bank you were talking about?" "In District 7, a very special building, you can see it when you arrive." One of them looked at him and said, "Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running." Chapter 169 Gatling, 2-in-1. Kakuzu finished the hot pot and headed to the 7th district. Because he lives in Akihabara, the most familiar place is the 9th district. In his opinion, the 9th district is the most modern, bustling and fun street in Konoha. Kakuzu has seen everything in his long life, but everything is new in the 9th district. Give him great excitement, and the 7th district is another scenery. Because there are two major banks, there are not many people coming and going in this area. But most of them are in a hurry and are not here to play. Kakuzu looked around for a week, and the people on the street seem to be all businessmen. The dressing is somewhat similar, and the number of ninjas is relatively small. His eyes quickly fell on two bank buildings shaped like money. In fact, Kakuzu had also heard about it before, but only thought that it was an underground bank. He doesn't borrow money, and there is no need to come to the underground bank. But I didn't expect that there is such a wonderful business as fixed deposits. He can't understand, isn't this a loss-making business? Kakuzu has only heard that borrowing money requires high interest, but there are also deposits? He walked into the Konoha Savings Bank. The wide lobby is separated from employees and guests with transparent materials in the middle. Kakuzu found an empty window. He knocked on the glass-like partition, which was very strong and seemed to be able to block the A-level ninjutsu. Worthy of being a bank, with excellent protection measures. At the same time, he also found that the entire bank was full of surveillance devices. Once someone commits an assault, the picture is sent back to the Konoha Police Department along the network cable. Within a minute, a group of guys driving Sharingan will arrive. If someone runs away, the loss will be borne by the Shinjuku and Science and Technology Research Department and the Konoha Police Department. In this month, many people have tried it. The only result is that the Uchiha clan's reputation has been greatly improved. After all, Uchiha takes the robbed things or prevents someone from hitting you or killing you. You can never show an attitude of hatred. This guest, what business do you want to handle? A young man in his 30s is not surprised to see Kakuzu's curiosity about the clapboard. From time to time someone is bored to observe. There was a formulaic and harmonious smile on his face. Our business here is divided into two categories, deposits and small loans. If it is a large amount, please go to the investment bank next door. I don't know if the customer wants to deposit or take a loan. Deposit. Okay, deposits are divided into demand deposits and fixed deposits. Demand means to deposit and withdraw at any time, without any restrictions, but the interest is general. And fixed deposits can only be withdrawn after the specified period. If they do not arrive, they cannot be withdrawn, but the advantage is that the interest rate is very high. You talk about time deposits. Kakuzu directly ignores demand deposits, and interest generally does not attract him. Okay. The youth's smile is even brighter. For banks, time deposits are undoubtedly more popular. He immediately started with Kakuzu popular science interest for each time period. Isn't it higher than 5 years? What? The youth did not react. It was the first time he heard someone ask this question. Because in the current ninja world, the average life expectancy is only 30 or 40. 5 years is already an extremely high time, and many people don't want to keep it for so long. For fear of an accidental death one day, not to mention frequent wars. Not yet. The young man thought for a while and said, if the guest has special needs, we can apply. Kakuzu thought slightly, without mentioning his needs, and raised an issue that he was very concerned about. How does your Konoha Savings Bank guarantee the safety and reliability of deposits, and will you be able to repay it after a few years? Don't worry about this. The young man no longer knows how many such questions have been answered. Guest, do you know who opened the Konoha Savings Bank and the investment bank? Who? Master Hokage. Tsunade is the person in charge. Kakuzu frowned. Since there is Tsunade, there is Haruki naturally. If the two of them are behind the bank, there is no need to worry about going bankrupt. Although he doesn't like Haruki, this person has integrity. What's more, the bank involves so many people. Once something goes wrong, Hokage will lose face and even Konoha's reputation will be affected. Kakuzu was agitated for a while. His money is kept by someone special. But money cannot make money. If you put it in the Konoha Savings Bank, it saves the cost of hiring people, is very safe, and can still earn interest. He has grievances, in theory, he can live indefinitely. The more Kakuzu thought about it, the more cost-effective it became. Bai earns so much money, isn't it fragrant? What if he knows it? It's your own rules, you can't go back on it, right? The only uncomfortable thing is that if he saves money, he will have an intersection with Haruki. I want to save 500 million, Kakuzu said slowly. Even if it is 5 years of interest, he can spend nearly 60 million taels. This is almost equivalent to 2/3 of the bounty of Harumi. Anyway, it's stored at home, and it's also stored at the bank. What? The young man suddenly raised his head, unable to believe his ears for a while. What do you say to this guest? 500 million taels. 500 million? The young man stammered with fright. He had never heard of so much money in his life. Is it not okay? Sure. The young man stood up suddenly, with an excited and respectful expression on his face. After some conversation, Kakuzu made a contract, but his money is not in Konoha. The next day, Kakuzu asked Haruki for leave. Are you not going to leave? Haruki stayed with Tsunade yesterday, and the bank's business would not be reported to him, so I didn't know that Kakuzu was going to deposit most of his wealth in the bank, intending to squeeze his wool. If he knows, he can only tell Kakuzu that although you live a long time, this new thing is too deep for you to grasp. You earn, but I earn more. Well, Konoha is barely okay. I plan to stay for a while. Kakuzu looked indifferent. Haruki couldn't help but smile. Konoha's current situation, if he stays here for a long time and then goes to another place, it is simply the difference between heaven and hell. He has a deep understanding in his previous life. The city and the countryside are in sharp contrast. However, with the influence of various factors, rural life was suddenly welcomed. So you are going back with your luggage this time? If you plan to stay in Konoha, you might as well change your job content. Haruki always felt that after spending so much money, it was a bit of a loss to only teach 2 students. What job? The job is the same. I'm still a teacher, but I'm no longer a teacher of Kakashi and Obito, but I'm a newly established Konoha Shinobi University distinguished professor. What do you think? What about the salary? Kakuzu asked sharply. He doesn't care what job he is, only the amount of money. No change, or even more. If you are willing to set up a scientific research group to develop new ninjutsu or ninjutsu, we will also allocate a generous amount of research funding to you. Make a deal. Kakuzu said without hesitation. He knows a lot of ninjutsu, and after hearing that Haruki's so-called scientific research team, he has already planned to defraud the funds. Haruki watched him leave. He is not worried. All scientific research must be professionally reviewed. Kakuzu can come up with S-rank ninjutsu, and he is willing to give him money. Tsunade had already gone to the Hokage building in advance. Haruki thought for a while, and walked around the school. Konoha Shinobi University is an expansion of the original ninja school. With the reform of the education system, genin is no longer the standard for graduation. A normal ninja will have to graduate from elementary school, middle school, and university in 12 years. Taking into account the special circumstances of the ninja world, the junior high school was cancelled. 12 years is already extremely long, but after arriving at the university, even if the work-study mechanism is implemented, so as not to waste resources, the titles of genin, chunin, and jonin were changed as extra points for the exam. Teacher Haruki. It's Sasori. Haruki saw Sasori of Akasago who greeted him. After coming to Konoha, Sasori was not arranged as a mere scientific researcher. Haruki asked him to be an exchange student in Class A of the 2nd grade. This is the class of Kakashi and Obito. In the new year, they are no longer first-year students. On the first day of school, Sasori leaned on the puppets, 1-on-2, and competed with the 2 geniuses of Kakashi and Obito. Although the final result was lost, the beautiful and violent Loli was really red, and the delicate little boy created a great sensation. In just a few days, Sasori became a big hit among students. Haruki had already expected it. Sasori and Genhung are the focus no matter where they are, and it is normal to cause a disturbance. Because of this, he had an idea and asked Tsunagakure's ninjas to come and study abroad. Are you used to it at school? Although Haruki is a teacher, he hasn't attended class for a long time and only heard about Sasori's deeds at school. Fine. A smile appeared at the corner of Sasori's mouth. He met many good friends here. The so-called genius cherishes genius. At Tsunagakure, his peers couldn't find anyone comparable to him. Naturally, there is no desire to talk. But Konoha is different, and there are many geniuses. Kakashi and Obito in the class alone can make him feel stressed. In addition, the research institute Haruki asked Shaw to move back to him was very interested. There is no need to fool Haruki, he ran to the ninja research group when he was fine. Especially Skyfire. Let Sasori's eyes shine. Not only that, he also saw various conceptual drawings given by Haruki. Very cool and powerful, but unfortunately there are only external diagrams. By the way, sir, Mrs. Murakami and I developed a new weapon yesterday. Oh, go and take a look. Haruki heard this and immediately became interested. I don't know what kind of weapon Muramasu Ichiro has developed. According to the various weapons seen in the movie in his previous life, he produced all the appearance pictures for them. Pistols, machine guns, planes, tanks, warships, Terminator, spaceships, Gundam, etc. Although Murakami said that most of them are too whimsical. After the expansion of Konoha Shinobi University, the research institute is no longer limited to underground laboratories. This is, Haruki's eyes widened, looking at this familiar and fierce murder weapon. The gun body is more than 2 meters long and has 5 large caliber rotating barrels. The overall black color reveals a silent curve. According to your original appearance drawing, we improved on the basis of Skyfire and used the technology of puppets to form this machine gun. Seeing his appearance, Muramasu Ichiro couldn't help but feel a little proud. He talked about various data about this machine gun. Haruki only nodded. Unexpectedly, you guys really made Gatlin out. He was quite moved. Although the technology is completely different, the final effect is not bad. Even the shortcomings of heavy weight can be solved by puppets. If the exoskeleton is successful again, I believe his new army will be in no way disadvantaged. The name Gatlin is a bit strange. Murakami did not entangle and continued, whether it is Skyfire or Gatling, if you want to play the best role, you still have to rely on chakra. It's not that the thermal weapons of the previous life are not good, but the industry of the ninja world is immature and cannot be replicated. Haruki stroked his chin. The new weapons are more effective in the ninja army than the ordinary army. But it's not all suitable. After reaching the Jonin level, these are completely unnecessary. On the contrary, exoskeleton or steel armor has a lot of improvement for them. But Haruki will not give up the ordinary army, mainly because there are too few ninjas. The 4th Ninja Allied Forces were no more than 80,000 people. If Haruki could build an ordinary army of hundreds of thousands and tens of millions, all equipped with new weapons, wouldn't it be invincible in the world? Of course, it is not very useful for Uchiha Madara and his like. Haruki talked to 2 people about the chakra battery. If it can be solved, ordinary people can also use scientific endurance tools. After leaving the institute, Haruki immediately went to Anbu, which is now the Ministry of Security and Intelligence. He has a task for them to do: find the location of Sora Shinobu. With new weapons, he focused on the flying fortress. Isn't the technology that Sora Shinobu demonstrated in the original work just an alternative spaceship? Once Konoha took over, Haruki believed that his aerospace force was not a dream. Haruki only vaguely remembered that the kingdom of Sora died in the Second Ninja World War. Its survivor, Shenong, is also a very good medical ninja. Possess the medical forbidden technique of physical activation and physical regeneration, and use it to open the 8 inner gates 8 gate without dying. To be honest, Haruki was greedy. It's a pity that Might die and Might Guy can learn medical ninjutsu. But he can. The only troublesome Shenong is hard to find. This guy likes to travel in various shinobi villages when he is fine, and steals forbidden technique by the way. But the flying fortress is actually the main body of the empty village, hidden under the ruins of the empty country. 2 more days passed. Kakuzu came back. Haruki knew that this guy had deposited 500 million taels in the Konoha savings bank. Even with his current wealth, he has to say, rich people. But he didn't do anything. 500 million taels were stored in the bank, and he was the one who took advantage. The money will be used in the construction of Konoha. Spring goes and autumn comes. After half a year, Anbu finally found the trace of Shenong. Appears in Kirigakure, the land of water. Haruki said to Tsunade, and came back to the land of water alone. Since Tsunade became Hokage, he has been very busy. And his apprentices are also busy. Besides, the Kingdom of Water is quite chaotic and dangerous at this time because of the widespread spread of the story of One Piece. Haruki alone is more convenient. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 170 Burning Fruit Fire Country Border Ferry. Haruki stood on the coast looking out, preparing to rent a boat. At this moment, a sturdy man walked behind him, with strong muscles, about 30 years old. He glanced at Haruki inadvertently, stayed on his valuable clothes for 2 seconds, and laughed heartily. Is this guest going to take a boat? Haruki glanced around, and said, yes, can you rent a boat? It's not renting a boat, I can take you where the guests want to go, the young man replied. Go to the country of water. It just so happens that I want to go, and I will see you off as long as you can pay. Can. Haruki did not bargain, and settled the bill quickly, which made the youth even more happy. You just call me Zentaro. Good. Haruki followed him onto the boat. The boat is not big, but it is more than enough for 2 people. He found a seat everywhere. Standing on the bow of the boat, Zentaro paddled, showing a strong sense of strength between every move. Haruki squinted his eyes and stopped speaking. Half an hour later, his breathing was steady and he seemed to fall asleep. Guest. Zentaro tried to shout, but did not respond. He called again 3 times in a row, as usual. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. Stopped the sailing boat and took out a white short sword, slightly longer than a dagger, about 18 centimeters. Zentaro has always liked the number 18. He came to Haruki and gestured, very skilled. As one of the emerging pirates, he has become accustomed to this kind of work. Although he is only a chef in his pirate group, the chef also has dreams. He thought he would spend his whole life in the kitchen, but devil fruit aroused his childhood ninja desire. So he resolutely went to sea. It is a pity that he does exercise all the year round, but after all, it is an embroidered pillow. Crashed into the Blackwood pirates and was unfortunately taken prisoner. The only good luck is that the entire pirate group does not have a chef. After some twists and turns, Zentaro went back to his old profession. So there is no harm in learning one more technique. Zentaro retracted his thoughts and raised the knife in his hand. Short sword cut precisely on Haruki's neck. He couldn't help being a little proud. After being a pirate, he understood that there was no difference between killing and killing pigs. Boom. Zentaro's smile condensed, and the short sword he bought at a large price was rolled up. Haruki opened his eyes. He touched his neck without feeling anything. The authentic sage body has long been invulnerable. He took Zentaro's short sword casually, shook slightly, and recovered immediately. Big. Sir. Zentaro swallowed. He knew he had met a ninja. Only a ninja has such an exaggerated performance. Which pirate group? Haruki put short sword on his neck and smiled. Kuroki. My lord, I'm just a cook, really. Oh? It's normal for a chef to bring a knife, right? Yes. Zentaro nodded quickly. Take me to the Blackwood Pirates. Haruki pushed the short sword back into Zentaro's hand. By the way, tell me about the current pirates' famous names. Zentaro took his life back, and wanted to talk to Haruki with his heart and lungs. 10 minutes later, Haruki couldn't help but raised his brows. He heard something very interesting. You mean there is a ninja who claims to be the offspring of Roger One Piece, who ate a so-called burning fruit and obtained an extraordinary fire style? The plot was so familiar to him that he thought he had heard it wrong. Have you read the original One Piece? Yes. The leader of the burning pirate group is extraordinary. His fire style has surpassed everyone's imagination and has reached the limit of blood succession. His fame is to fight alone 7 warlords of the sea, fire. The inverse of style overwhelms water style. When Zentaro talked about his story, his face naturally showed a look of yearning. Haruki could tell that he was not lying. The so-called 7 warlords of the sea is the first generation of ninja swords. Although it was broken by Might Dai alone, it was Krypton who opened 8 inner gates after all, and he could understand it. But the ninja that Zentaro said was a bit beyond common sense. Haruki thought for a moment. Uchiha Madara jumped into his mind. Thinking of this, he closed his eyes and telepathic with the Flying Thunder God technique. Since Uchiha Madara planted it, he has not used it. One is that there is no time, and the other is that he is afraid of rushing to the ground. Chakra consumes rapidly. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes. Uchiha Madara is in Kirigakure at this time. This burning pirate group is probably created by him. But Haruki still felt dumbfounded. How much does the leader of your pirate group offer? 20 million. Zentaro's heart trembled, and it was broken. He might have met a bounty hunter. But he still betrayed the leader without hesitation. During this period of time at sea, he had long learned to kill decisively. Haruki naturally didn't like this little money, but he is very interested in this burning pirate group. Mostly Uchiha Madara used to train the team. Akatsuki has not grown up yet. Kirigakure is located overseas, isolated from the world, and is the best controlled object. Besides, there is a tail beast. Of course Haruki didn't know that his wood clone gave Uchiha Madara a sense of crisis. The criteria for joining the Burning Pirates is very simple. A pirate with a bounty of 30 million or a bounty of 30 million. 1 hour passed. Haruki saw the Kuroki pirates. Zentaro immediately raised the black flag. This is our secret sign, he quickly explained. When you see the flag, you know it's his own. Haruki nodded slightly. Boarded this steamship. His perception spread. There were 43 people on board and 32 of his chunin. The leader Kuroki has the strongest strength, Jonin. Zentaro, you brought a little boy with you when you went home? Kuroki glanced at Haruki, who was too handsome, and his expression sank. Lousy hates little white face the most. It's your thing that you like the back door, but you are not qualified to take it on board. Zentaro's face suddenly paled, and when he was about to explain, he saw a flash of sword light in front of him. The arc rises high like a crescent moon. The blood and head rolled to the ground. Zentaro's face was even whiter, without a trace of blood. He couldn't understand the scene before him at all. Is there any pirate group nearby? It costs more than 10 million taels. Haruki turned to look at him. Yes. Zentaro trembled with fright. Anyone who saw a guy who killed Jonin with a single sword would feel scared. He took a deep breath, pointed to the north, and said, "Go straight ahead, there's an island. I heard that the Nagata pirates have been resting here recently." Thanks. Haruki smiled. With the sword energy in his hand, no one escaped from the entire ship. Upon seeing this, Zentaro stammered and said, "My lord, you are polite. This is what I should, He covered his neck, and blood couldn't stop gushing from between his fingers. This is a thank you gift. Without turning his head back, Haruki disappeared into the vast sea holding Kuroki's head. If the pirates in One Piece still have some ideals, the pirates here are pure killing. His story only fueled the flames. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 171, The Controlled Fourth Mizukage. Who is here? Sunny. Haruki held 2 heads and stood in front of a huge steamship. His eyes flickered. Such a boat is not easy to buy. I haven't heard, are you here to join the Burning Pirates? The young man looked at him for a while, and finally stopped at the 2 heads in his hands. He felt a little familiar, so he pulled out a thick book. Haruki glanced subconsciously, and the big characters of the reward list of the gold exchange came into view. He suddenly remembered that this was his idea for the black market. It turned out to be Kuroki and Nagata. You did it alone? The young man found out the origin of the two heads, and his eyes were a little surprised. Although they set a 30 million bounty for the burning pirate group, many of them were collected by the number. Like Haruki, almost none of them met the conditions by killing 2 people. But such a ninja means at least the elite of Jonin. The future is limitless. Thinking of this, his attitude is quite respectful. Yeah. I think there is no need to lie. Haruki threw 2 heads in front of him and smiled. Is it true or not? Try it and you will see. Upon seeing this, the young man no longer doubted immediately. So confident, there will definitely be no falsehoods. What's more, the only result of fraud in the burning pirates is death. Please follow me. The young man led Haruki into the cabin. Our captain is not here. I will take you to see the deputy captain first. You have to be careful, he doesn't have a good temper. Okay. Haruki responded with a smile. I naturally understand the rules. A few seconds later, he saw the deputy captain. A rough knife stood in front of him. Almost reached his shoulder height. The deputy captain has no eyebrows, a cross scar on his right cheek, red stripes on his mouth, and sharp teeth. All in all, it's not like a normal person. With such an obvious feature, Haruki recognized who he was. 10 Tibetan loquats. One of the 7 ninja swords. The knife in his hand is the broken blade beheading broadsword. After his death, this knife was inherited by no cut, but the passing years were disadvantageous, and he met the protagonist group and became an experience pack. The original Chunin knife 7 people defected one after another. Mainly because of the bloody rule that Obito controlled 4th Mizukage. But now there is no reason. Haruki's thoughts turned. Could it be said that Uchiha Madara controlled 3rd Mizukage? Master Loquat, this is a sunny day. He brought 2 heads worth 30 million in total and wants to join our pirate group. The youth bowed and introduced. When the Loquat 10 Tibetan heard the words, his eyes changed slightly. 230 million, it seems that the strength is good. After a few days, test and join after passing. He waved his hand blankly and stopped explaining. The youth breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Loquat Juzo is in a good mood today. He arranged a room for Haruki and told him about the test. Complete the specified reward within a limited time. Haruki waited for 2 days. There are no restrictions on board. He was boring and wandered around. Get the situation clear. The number of people on the entire ship is not large, only about 23 people. The lowest is Chunin, and each possesses unique skills, and the combat power is no less than that of Jonin. Among them is a ninja from the Yoruichi clan. Let him take one more look. He thought of Kimimaro. It's a pity that he hasn't been born yet, otherwise, he will definitely have to go. Because of his relationship, Orochimaru is very likely not to charge Kimimaro anymore. But it's a pity to miss such a genius. Speaking of blood succession boundary, the attitude in the water country is very strange. Maybe it's because there are too many and don't cherish it. Many people are afraid of the harm caused by the blood succession boundary, and are quite disgusted by the blood succession boundary. The most typical one should be White. He was born in the snow clan of the water country, and possesses Bing Dun, but his village hates the blood succession boundary very much. After being exposed in vain, his father took someone to kill his mother. The frightened Bai used Bing Dun to escape. When he was hungry and cold, he met Dao Di and did not cut it. Since then, it has become his tool. Haruki is really hard to understand, because the hatred of blood following the limit can swing a butcher knife at his wife and children. It is simply heaven-defying outrageous. The captain has returned, he wants to see you. The door was knocked, followed by a summons. Haruki opened the door and followed the young man to the lobby. Even though he had never met the leader of the pirate regiment, his flying thunder god technique had already told him the truth. Uchiha Madara. He didn't hide his identity and sat in the middle of the hall openly. At this time, a long time has passed since his time, and those who have seen him are almost 3 feet tall. Head. Haruki salutes neither indifferently nor indifferently. Uchiha Madara glanced at him, a very indifferent breath. Such people are usually quite confident in themselves. He didn't say much, and threw him a reward list. Haruki took a look. A big order with a reward of 50 million, and the target is the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Fish Ghost. One of the 7 ninja swords. Broadsword, the first user of Samahata. He was a little puzzled. Why is this still fratricidal? Speaking of it, he did see a few Ninja 7 in the past 2 days on the boat, but not all of them. Is it a test of his own strength, or does he really want him to kill the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost? Any problem? Uchiha Madara asked quietly. No, I just don't quite understand. Haruki smiled, head of the group. Do you want to help me out? You don't seem to be afraid of me. Uchiha Madara's eyes narrowed. Why should I be afraid of you? Everyone has 2 ears, 2 eyes and 1 mouth. Uchiha Madara was made speechless for a while. After he fought against the 7 ninja swords alone, he can be described as a country of famous waters. Whoever meets him must be honest and respectful to call him the head of the group. But the person in front of him, he could see that there was no fear. His thoughts turned slightly, and he said, this is a test for you, you just have to finish it. When Haruki heard the words, he carefully recalled the original work. The Watermelon Puffer Fish Ghost is evaluated as a city with a strong sense of guard and ruthless means. He nodded and said, I will definitely complete the task. After Haruki left, Uchiha Madara looked at his back and raised her mouth. This person is very personal, which made him interested. But let's talk about it when we survive. As Haruki guessed, after controlling 3rd Mizukage with Sharingan, he used One Piece to form his own power. But his approach has aroused some people's suspicion. Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost is one of them. Uchiha Madara's method of dealing with things that cannot be used for himself is simple. Haruki came to Kirigakure, infiltrate the Mizukage building silently. He quickly found the location of 3rd Mizukage. Sure enough, it was controlled. At the level of Uchiha Madara, it is difficult for ordinary people to find traces. In the original work, Obito controls 4th Mizukage or possesses Byakugan's blue discovery and unlocks the illusion. Of course, for Haruki, it was just a glance. He touched his chin. What should he do? According to his original plan, he was going to completely disrupt the situation in the water country, so that they could not intervene in the Third Ninja World War, or could not let go of their hands and feet. After all, what Haruki wanted was too amazing. He not only had to deal with the battle in Shinobu, but also attack the country of fire. This is almost an act of breaking the rules since ancient times. Big names who want to come to other countries will rush out in fear. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 172 Haruki suddenly thought of a way. What he wants is Uchiha Madara not to increase in strength, and the civil strife in the country of water. In the current situation, Uchiha Madara relied on the control of 3rd Mizukage to form the Burning Pirates, whose main force is the 7 ninja swordsmen. But it's not too long. What everyone believes is not Uchiha Madara, but his identity. If Uchiha Madara disappears at this time, the group of dragons has no head, and it happens to be in conflict with the remaining Mandarin Orange Yagura and the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Fish Ghost, there will be a fierce battle. Even if it fails, it will not have much impact on Haruki. Anyway, as long as they believe the story of One Piece, Water Country will not have a good life in a few years. After Haruki left the Mizukage building, he saw Shenong in Kirigakure's hospital based on the news from Anbu. His identity at this time is a vagrant medical ninja, but because of his superb medical skills, he has won unanimous praise from the hospital. Due to Kirigakure's particularity, Shenong saw many blood inheritance-bound families in the hospital. For the medical ninja, so much material is simply heaven. He took this opportunity to obtain a lot of information and secret techniques. Haruki knocked on the door. Please come in. Shenong's appearance looks much younger than the original, without white head and white beard. You are? He was slightly alert, because Haruki didn't wear Kirigakure's ninja suit. But occasionally there are such guys who don't like ninja clothes. I came to see a doctor. Haruki's complexion was not good, he sighed and said, after I went to the fire country some time ago to perform a mission, I didn't know why I contracted a strange disease. Oh, Shenong became interested. He liked some strange diseases the most. What are the symptoms? Haruki sat opposite him, stretched out his right arm, and his smooth skin was covered with branches. What? Shenong's eyes condensed. He had never seen this kind of illness. He did not think of wood style for the first time. Mainly wood style has not appeared for a long time. He picked up Haruki's right arm and observed it carefully. Will there be pain? No, it's incredible. These branches seem to be alive. Yes. And it can grow. How are you? Countless vines skyrocketed, and Shenong's body was wrapped in unexpected circumstances. Woohoo! His mouth was also blocked. The whole person struggled hard, but in vain. He finally remembered what he had met at this time, wood style. There was a bit of resentment and despair in his face. Shenong, you are not worthy of this name. Haruki shook his head and said. He separated a wood clone and sent him to Konoha with Flying Thunder God. He will be tortured by Anbu's people. The Haruki of the main body came quietly and walked quietly, less than a minute before and after, no one knew. He came to a shore and raised the signal flare. Blast a flame in the air. This was given by Uchiha Madara. According to him, if the assassination unfortunately fails, the flare can be released, and maybe he will come to the rescue. Well, maybe. The breath of Haruki suddenly became as if nothing. Then use wood clone to turn it into the body of the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost. After a while, he noticed Uchiha Madara's amazing chakra. It seems that his attitude really aroused his interest. Just as Haruki thought, Uchiha Madara didn't like licking dogs because he saw too much. On the contrary, a confident person like Haruki can make him look more. After he saw the signal flare, although his inner appraisal of Haruki was lower, he still rushed over. Uchiha Madara noticed the body of the Watermelon Pufferfish Ghost and was slightly startled. He always feels a touch of familiarity, but he quickly left the strangeness behind. You did a good job. Uchiha Madara originally had relatively low expectations for Haruki to complete the task, but he killed someone and ran out. His strength and resourcefulness are quite good, and he has the value of training. Heal your wound. You will be the deputy captain from now on. Deputy captain. Haruki stood up, his weakness disappeared, and he smiled and said, but I don't just want the deputy captain. Are you scamming me? Uchiha Madara's complexion darkened and said coldly, do you think you have the qualifications to inflate by killing the watermelon mountain pufferfish ghost? He did not doubt the identity of Haruki. I just thought that his interests were intriguing and he was ready to take his place. Well, I won't pretend either. Haruki shrugged, returning to the way he was when Wood Clone fought him last time. Uchiha Madara suddenly shook her body, looked alert, and pulled a few meters away. It's you. Who are you? He took a deep breath and continued to ask the questions he didn't get the answer last time. Meeting is fate, you don't need to know your name. Haruki rolled her wrists and smiled. Last time we didn't enjoy the clone, let's continue. Before Uchiha Madara could answer, his right arm suddenly turned into countless vines, like strips of lion majesty. The huge chakra quickly filled the surrounding space. Uchiha Madara has a moment of suffocation. Wood's style is completely different from last time. I don't know how many times the power has increased. He felt a familiar yet unfamiliar sense of oppression, and for a while there was the illusion of Senju Hashirama's rebirth. In the rapid sound of breaking wind, a huge tree formed, trying to wrap his body. Uchiha Madara shouted angrily, and the flames soared in an instant, turning into a sea of flames in front of him. But the trees are not affected. The sea of fire was torn apart. His body turned sharply without being caught, but hit the tree trunk. His abundant strength made him unable to control himself for a moment, and he flew out several meters back. Haruki smiled slightly. Last time you said that my physical skills are not good, try my swordsmanship this time. He drew out the long sword and chopped it down at will. Zhongwang aspect. Uchiha Madara stood firmly, and the sharp sword wind had arrived in front of him. His skin felt pain from the breath, but his reaction was extremely fast, and his right fist blasted out. Obviously it is not a strange force, but it is better than a strange force. An invisible mountain pressed towards Zhongwang. Chakra set off a storm. Uchiha Madara frowned and glanced at the sword marks on his fists. The strength of his clone is far inferior to Haruki. In his thoughts, Haruki lifted up. The sword light was like a tide, wave after wave, as if heavy rain was pouring down. Uchiha Madara didn't make any extra moves, and it was too late to look at the situation above his head. His hands quickly formed seals. A cloud of burning overheated dust quickly magnified. There was a boom. The violent explosion spread around him. Haruki's eyes narrowed. All he saw was grayish colors. Is this trying to run? Haruki's thoughts flashed, but it was just what he wanted. Uchiha Madara has Flying Thunder God technique on her body. He didn't want to kill him. Haruki's purpose is only to make Uchiha Madara return to his base and wait for death. He raised the sword. A huge sword light shimmering like a crystal appeared a few meters away in the sky. A breath of danger came. There are countless sharp edges in the air. Suddenly it turned into thousands of long swords, and one after another fell. The earthquake trembled and cracks grew. Haruki turned and left. A few minutes later, a tattered Uchiha Madara emerged from the soil. His body was full of cuts of sword wounds, but this is far inferior to the pain in his heart. It was the first time that Senju Hashirama was so miserable since his death. Even because of fear of being discovered, like a groundhog, he digs down frantically. Asshole. Uchiha Madara was furious and frustrated. He had never been so wronged. No, we must speed up the implementation of the plan. He can no longer stand his aging body. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 173 Tsunade stretched. The majestic mountain trembled. The thick curtains are only half opened, but the bright summer sun still illuminates half of the office. She glanced at the information on the desktop, and couldn't help feeling a little tired. Even if the executive department handles most of the things, the rest is still a large number, but it is very important, and she needs to make her own decisions. After that, it is sent to the policy department for reporting, and after there is no problem, it is assigned to each department. However, compared to the workload of Sarutobi Hiruzen and Senju Hashirama, Tsunade has done very little. Especially third Hokage, no matter what, it must be seen by him. Therefore, in her impression, he stayed in the office almost every day and had no time to rest. There was a knock on the door. Tsunade immediately sat upright and restored Hokage's majesty. Please come in. Morning, my lord queen. If you ridicule like this, you don't need her to look at it to know who it is. Haruki closed the door and walked to her. What queen, you want to call me Hokage? Tsunade handed him a Byakugan. Because she knew too much, she understood Haruki's reason for calling him the queen. It's nothing more than his evil taste. Conquering the queen seemed very fulfilling to him. Even taking it at night is even more fierce, so Tsunade couldn't hear these 4 words. It is easy to think of her pleading scream. Yes, it doesn't live up to the name now. Haruki picked up the glass in front of her and drank casually. When the country of fire also comes under your skirt, then you will be the real queen. Speak more seriously, don't lose track of it, under your skirt. Tsunade felt that Haruki was unscrupulous in front of him. Why is it that after becoming a Hokage, he loses his majesty even more? It's my mistake, Haruki said, holding up her face. I can only be under your skirt. Tsunade thought that this guy was going to change sex, but she didn't expect the next sentence to be revealed, and she changed the subject. How did you go to the country of water to harvest? Shenong has been caught. Anbu is torturing. There should be news soon. If he is really tough, let Makoto go. Haruki sent back to Shenong to defeat Uchiha Madara and return to Konoha within half an hour, so Tsunade did not know that Shenong was in Anbu. As for Uchiha Madara, he has not told Tsunade yet. After all, the news was too shocking. What do you think of Makoto? Tsunade couldn't help but patted his hands. No way, Mangekyo Sharingan is so easy to use. When Haruki heard her question, it seemed that she did often ask Makoto to do Anbu things. The dignified patriarch of the Uchiha clan is the only one being called by himself. Is the sky fortress of Cloud Shinobi that magical? It's worth a trip. Before Haruki left, he told her the reason, but Tsunade disagrees. If it is so powerful, it will not be destroyed in the Second Ninja World War. The magic is indeed magic, but the important thing is how to use it. Haruki shook his head and said, the use of Shenong in the original work is too stupid. I intend to let the ninja army of Wind Style take charge, and then use Nine Tails as the driving force. Relying on the aerial fortress, we can have a fortress that is easy to defend and difficult to attack. If it's Nine Tails, it doesn't seem to make a difference if there is a fortress in the sky. Tsunade couldn't help laughing. But there is only one Nine Tails, and there can be many fortresses in the sky. Haruki naturally knows the strength of Nine Tails, but only driving one is overkill. And with the exoskeleton, there will be more different usages. Then I look forward to your performance. Tsunade blinked. She couldn't imagine it, but she believed Haruki. The two chatted for a while. Shinji Hira knocked on the door and entered. Hokage-sama, Haruki-sama, Shenong has already confessed the matter of the Sky Fortress, and the specific location is southwest of the Kunokuni site. Let's go. Haruki led him directly to the country of the sky. Hey Shinji looked around and took out another map he got from Shenong. A few minutes later, the two people found the empty village. The empty village at this time was in ruins long ago, and the original appearance was not visible. And farther away is an ordinary village. Haruki immediately remembered the power of the fortress in the sky, the so-called Zero Tail, condensed from the darkness of people's hearts. His perception spread, and under the ground, a huge and cold chakra was entrenched. Raise it up. Okay. Ping Shenji fell on the ground, searched carefully, and found the node. Shenong said, Jian. The booming voice remembered. The ground on the soles of the feet is shaking. Shinji Hira jumped immediately. He can't fly. After retreating for a certain distance, the ground nearly a kilometer cracked and then lifted off. The stones and soil kept rolling down. Haruki raised his head and looked at the huge fortress high in the sky. From the outside, it looks like a spinning top. A pointed section appeared from below, and above it seemed to be a castle. But the shape is average. One after another, the broad heads were erected. It is difficult for Haruki to rely on Shenong's taste. He Ping Shenji fell into the fort and began the inspection. The main body is made of stone, and the degree of mechanization is low, but there are many flying machines powered by wind style. In addition, there is a super-energy heavy artillery. Haruki remembers the power of the original work is comparable to tailed beast bomb. At the same time, at the core of the fortress, he saw Zero Tail. In a huge cylindrical room, the Zero Tail like a python is confined in it. The walls are covered with patterns that look like a seal technique. There should have been a zero-tailed Jinchuriki called Amaru. But he was not born now. When Lingwei saw them, he couldn't see the expression on his masked face, but from the behavior of hitting the wall, he seemed very excited. Haruki ignored it. He took a deep breath, planning to use Flying Thunder God technique to transport the air fortress back. But for such a huge item, the chakra needed is also massive. Kurama Ecological Base. It is swimming in the river water. The waterfall fell from the sky, washing its body, making it show a refreshing expression. Kurama's life is pretty good. Haruki didn't know if he had forgotten it, and didn't look for it for a long time. Of course it is not to miss Haruki, it would rather he never remember himself. The only uncomfortable thing is that Konoha's people come to disturb him from sleeping from time to time. What makes Kurama most strange is that these people don't seem to be afraid of it, and they are holding tickets to the Kurama Ecological Base. But every time they come, they always bring some food to feed it. After thinking about Haruki, he opened one eye and closed one eye. Anyway, he didn't suffer a loss, but he was free. Who? Kurama suddenly felt a very large object. It raised its head quickly and said angrily, "Which bastard throws things? Oh, do you know this is the old man's place? When did it become your sight?" Haruki suddenly appeared in front of it. Kurama. "Oh. Of course it's your territory. I thought someone invaded. As a guard, I must overwhelm the opponent from the momentum." Kurama quickly explained. "Well, your life is here, protect this fortress, and tame this Zero Tail." Haruki couldn't help but smile. Kurama's gaze is towards Zero Tail, his eyes are horribly bright. Hey. After being crushed for so long, it is finally its turn to crush others. The next day, the Ninja and Science and Technology Research Department sent nearly 100 people and began to transform the air fortress. Kurama is happily playing Zero Tail, but its happiness did not last long. Haruki is here again. Kurama slapped Zero Tail vigorously and said, "My lord." Zero Tail was dizzy and shook her head vigorously. Seeing Haruki, thinking of her previous actions, she couldn't help but feel a little afraid. It thought it had a chance to escape yesterday, but Nine Tails is here as a younger brother, and it has no chance. Grown-ups. Zero Tail's voice was loud, it was a hurricane passing by. Keep it down. Nine Tails noticed that Ching Shu frowned, and quickly slapped Nine Tails again. If this guy offends Haruki and implicates himself, then he really has no place to suffer. As for dignity or something. Sorry, no, Kurama, you are Yin Nine Tails, and you focus on mental power. Is there any mental ninjutsu that can contact you? No, Kurama answered subconsciously. How can there be ninjutsu connected to it? It is dignified Nine Tails. It suddenly remembered that it was no longer the previous self. Kurama quickly added, I can create one. Yes, try to keep it simple so that everyone can learn. Haruki made a request. He uses Nine Tails as a logistics transfer station. If it is too difficult, there is no need. Okay. Kurama fully agreed. Sage of Six Paths gave them a ninjutsu lesson at the beginning. But it's a pity that it didn't listen carefully at all. In the end, only one tail Shuhei learned ninjutsu. Kurama thought for a while and told Haruki a very simple usage. That is, it separates countless pieces of chakra and gives it to every Konoha resident. As long as they inject chakra into Nine Tails chakra, they can contact Nine Tails. After speaking, Haruki thought of chakra's original intention, to communicate. Especially fist to fist, the heart is connected. After Haruki got the Nine Tails chakra, he asked Okikai to experiment. After a while, Kurama said, I got the request of Okitomo. I need a Fire Country investigation report, published by Haruki-sama published half a year ago. Haruki handed Kurama a book. With its nearly huge chakra application, the book reached the Shin Konoha bookstore almost instantly, and fell in front of Okikai. Haruki nodded in satisfaction. The real express delivery will arrive in no time. In the future, you will work for Konoha's postal department during the day. The content is what you just did. I will let them gather all kinds of goods into the ecological base. Kurama sighed, Ryu's carefree days will never go back. But fortunately, I can move freely at night. The establishment of the postal department once again shocked the residents of Konoha. After just 1 week of implementation, Kurama's workload has surged from a few hundred on the first day to tens of thousands. It feels that if this continues, it will have a nervous breakdown. For a full 12 hours, there was no rest. Every second someone contacts you. Although not tired, but so annoying, Kurama took pains to learn from it again, and stared at Zero Tail. Fill it with its own chakra and let it take its place. Worthy of being an old man, clever, Kurama was free again. It even wants to ask Haruki to catch all the other 8-tailed beasts. If they share the work, they should be completely saved, right? Haruki didn't care about him. He was chatting with Namikaze Minato about the Fire Country during this period. According to his original plan, a few years later, Minato led the new army and directly captured the Daimyo Palace. But later I felt that the matter was not appropriate. The thinking of the original work is destined to kill the Daimyo, which is truly earth-shattering. Keep the other big names going crazy, so he assigned a task to Minato. The current Daimyo has a bunch of sons and daughters, and Minato selects one to assist him. In the name of fighting for power, act rebellious. Success. After Haruki and Minato finished talking, they saw Kushina rushing in happily. What succeeded? Haruki didn't speak. Minato had already taken the lead and asked with a smile. Dang dang dang. Kushina learned the movements of Sailor Moon on TV recently, spreading her feet, akimbo her left hand, and a scissor hand with her right hand. She placed it in front of her forehead and shouted, "Witness the miracle." Accompanied by a cloud of smoke, a beautiful girl of the same age as her appeared in front of her. Wearing a blue kimono, with 2 furry fox ears on top of his head, his eyes are black, his hair is reddish, and there is a hint of unreal feeling on the whole. She raised her face and looked at Haruki with her big shiny eyes. After hesitating, I didn't know what to call, and followed Kushina to call a teacher. Are you Yu Zhao Qian? Haruki was a little surprised, but didn't expect that the task assigned to Kurama was overfulfilled. Tamamo nodded. Her character was relatively quiet, and she was a little embarrassed to be noticed by Haruki and Minato, and ran behind Kushina again. How about it? Before Kushina hugged Yu Zhao, she rubbed her chest. Minato immediately showed envy. It's not envious of Kushina, but of Tamazu Qian. Since she can transform into a human form, let her learn ninjutsu with you. Haruki thought slightly. Although he was surprised, he didn't think too much. He glanced at Minato, hoping he could hold it. Haruki gave time to them both. Minato will leave soon. Naturally, he does not know how to be amorous. Haruki opened the door, and the streets of Akihabara were as lively as ever. But it is a little different from before. The large screen advertisements outside the building are becoming more diverse. In addition to movies, there are also various televisions. Haruki naturally won't waste the TV already in the original work. Various programs were quickly arranged. Many anime and TV series he watched in his previous life were quickly produced. I have to say that the productivity of the ninja is really high. There is no shortage of manpower. As long as there are enough chakras, Shadow Clone Technique is a plug-in. Of course, what Haruki is looking forward to more is the game of the network department. Konoha has achieved the coverage of the local area network monitoring system, and the network technology is mature enough to develop games. But the game is more troublesome. It may take a long time. Another year passed. 6-year-old Uchiha Obito suddenly ran over to tell Haruki that he had met a strange man. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 174 Shisui, 4th More. What weirdo? Haruki looked at Uchiha Obito, saw him panting, and handed him a glass of warm water. He is 6 years old this year, the same year as Kakashi. According to the original progress, Kakashi has graduated and was promoted to Chunin. But at this time they are still in school, an old grandma. Obito recalled the scene in the morning and said, I have never seen her before. It shouldn't be from the Uchiha clan. She asked me to help her cross the road. I didn't think much about it, but she seemed very pessimistic. Tell me what the world is. It's ugly, you have to see its true colors. Haruki was stunned. If you are familiar with it, could it be Uchiha Madara? It stands to reason that there should be no contact so early. He touched his chin. Could it be because he beat him? Uchiha Madara is so angry that he wants to reincarnate early, live his second life, and return to the top. I have to say that this possibility is extremely high. And because of him, Obito also grows faster than in the original. Opening his eyes at the age of 4 is considered to be the earliest Uchiha clan in history. The most important thing is that Obito has a lot of emotions. He is a rare man in the Uchiha clan who wants to have love. Other people. Well, what is a woman? It's nothing more than a tool for inheritance. In addition, Obito's head is not smart enough to be easily deceived. But now with his education, Uchiha Madara's set is indeed full of loopholes. How did you get her back? Well, I told her that Konoha is prosperous and beautiful. Teacher, Kakashi, Lin, etc. You were kind to me. How can you say that the world is ugly? Obito took it for granted. He remembered something and said, I also said some things about how to build the world, which I learned in the teacher's class. How did she react? Well, it seems shocked. Interesting. Haruki gave you a thumbs up. Obito, I'll give you a task. This old grandmother must have a sad past, so she doesn't understand Konoha's development. As for you, you can talk to her and try to agree with her. Oh, okay. Obito didn't think too much and immediately nodded. Haruki is not sure whether it is Uchiha Madara or White Zetsu. But Uchiha Madara is more likely. Since he wants to get in touch with Obito, let him get in touch. Anyway, Haruki is in Konoha. It is impossible for him to make trouble. Uchiha Madara in the original work is actually a very complicated person. He was originally an ideal young man, but Konoha could not give him the peace he wanted, and because of the backstabs of Senju Hashirama and Senju Tobirama, he left angrily. After meeting Black Zetsu, he came up with the idea of creating the world of Tsukuyomi. Not influenced by the protagonist's mouth, overall he is a well-shaped supporting role. You only came here because of this incident? Haruki returned to his senses and looked at Obito. Hey, there is one more thing, teacher, you told me. Let me ask who is called Uchiha Shisui. Did you find it? Haruki narrowed his eyes. Yes, just born 2 days ago. Obito scratched his head and asked, why do you know his name, teacher? It's actually a kind of space-time ninjutsu. Haruki casually found a reason to send Obito away. Out of trust in his teacher, he did not doubt this kind of time ninjutsu for predicting the future. Uchiha Shisui. Haruki thought for a while. Konoha should not be able to cultivate the Shisui in the original work. After all, there is no Shimura Danzo, the source of all evil. Besides, what can a newborn baby do? As long as he follows the education system set by Haruki, after 12 years of reading, there will be no more cliff-jumping plots. Metropolis of the Country of Fire. As the 4th son of the daimyo, Kenjong Oda is drinking boring wine. The reason was that a woman he was fond of was snatched by his elder brother, and he was helpless. According to the eldest son's succession system, his eldest brother is the future name. If he wants to live safely in the future, he must maintain sufficient awe of his elder brother. That said, but he still felt very depressed. The position of the big name is naturally attractive enough. But with such a system, his eldest brother won the support of almost all civil servants and generals. Even if he rebelled, he would be nothing more than moths fighting the fire. The only thing he left may be his good reputation for being honest and approachable. At this moment, a knock on the door sounded. He raised his head very impatiently and said, I'll talk about something tomorrow. Is that how your Royal Highness treats distinguished guests? The door was pushed open. The cool breeze of the night blew in, and Kenjong Oda awakened in spirit. It's you, Namikaze Minato. He was a little surprised. Namikaze Minato comes from Konoha and is the commander-in-chief of the new army. Really speaking about power, he is far more chic than himself. I heard some bad things. Namikaze Minato sat opposite him and poured a glass of wine. Your Excellency came over to taunt me? Kenjong Oda's face sank. No man can tolerate such a thing, but the reality is too cruel. No, I'm here to help His Highness. Namikaze Minato does not rush or drink slowly. Although he looks young, his temperament is convincing. Help me? Kensho Oda was startled slightly. How to help me? He is the future daimyo, even Konoha's Hokage can't help me. The future daimyo? Namikaze Minato smiled. Who can be sure about the future? Doesn't your highness want to be a daimyo? What are you talking about? Kenjong Oda's face changed drastically. Don't talk nonsense. It seems that you don't have the peace you imagined in your heart. Namikaze Minato took out a scroll and handed it to Oda Kensho. What is this? After opening it, Kenjong Oda quickly finished reading, frowning. All the names of civil servants and generals were on it. But not all, it may only look like 1/5. What's the meaning? He looked up at Namikaze Minato, waiting for his answer. These are the people who may support your highness. What? They are not high-ranking officials, and they are basically in the middle-level position, but they are all talented people with straight personality and can't speak, so they are not likable. It is almost impossible to get promoted. Namikaze Minato picked up the chopsticks and picked up a piece of chicken, unceremoniously. Kenjong Oda grew up in a power struggle anyway, it is natural to understand more. He understands what Minato means. But they can't help me become a big name, only you. Kensho Oda was not a fool, thinking of Minato's previous words, took a deep breath and asked, what do you want? He doesn't doubt Minato's ability. One is that he has a new army, and the other is that he is from Konoha. He touched himself, definitely not his personal meaning, but Konoha. Sure enough, the next sentence caused the big rock in Oda Kenjang's heart to fall. If you become a daimyo, I hope to double the assistance to Konoha and support me as the next generation of Hokage to the best of my ability. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 175. The Land of Fire begins the barracks of the new army. Kensho Oda took over Namikaze Minato's mechanical exoskeleton. I feel extremely heavy when I start. If he hadn't exercised for a long time, he might not be able to afford it at all. He frowned slightly and asked in confusion, can such armor really be used by ordinary people? His Royal Highness, don't worry. Minato didn't explain too much and said, you can know the reason when you put it on. Kenjong Oda nodded. He unfolds what is called an exoskeleton, which is actually a very thick black mechanical armor. He was completely wrapped up and down. No skin was exposed at all. Please enter your password. A transparent screen appeared in front of Oda Kensho. He saw the font above and said, Shuenja Army number 001. The password is correct, the mechanical exoskeleton is activated. Chakra without color and electric current flow on the steel skeleton. 2/3 of the power for this suit comes from chakra, and 1/3 comes from electricity. Kenjong Oda suddenly felt that the mechanical power suit, which was originally uncomfortable like a ghost press, became extraordinarily light, as if it had no weight at all. He was taken aback for a moment, and immediately did a set of normal morning exercises for the new army. The 8th set of broadcast gymnastics, smooth, extremely smooth. Kenjong Oda has only this feeling. He walked up to a huge stone, his eyes flashed, and he lifted it effortlessly. Give me a knife. Kenjong Oda put down the stone and took the samurai sword that Minato handed over, slashing hard, sparks splashing, and the sharp blade rolled up. He couldn't help but move. No wonder the father is willing to supply the Zonja army with 5 times the cost of the normal army. This is indeed worth it. Even if it is 10 times, I am willing. The Shuenja army is the name of the army changed because the mechanical exoskeleton appears black as a whole. His Royal Highness is absurd. Minato smiled and helped him take off the mechanical power suit. As Konoha's best effort to build armor for 7 years, it is not just for ordinary troops. He tried, after putting on this suit, ordinary genin can hardly pose a threat. But the only pity is that it is too expensive. What Oda Kenshang didn't know was that the daimyo's financial burden only reached 2/3. And the remaining third was made by Haruki himself. Not to save money for the daimyo, but to pay the soldiers of the Shuenja army as salaries or wages. The Land of Fire is basically in the feudal period, except for the nobles and ninjas, most people are very poor. Including the army. But ordinary soldiers are not much taller than farmers. The only advantage is that there are channels for promotion. It's not a false praise, it's a fact. Kensho Oda has been very energetic in recent years. With Minato's Shuenja army as the confidence, he has won many civilians and generals. Although not as good as his elder brother, he still has a team. Minato, it will be father's 50th birthday in 2 days. What gift should I give? Kensho Oda remembered his business. His experience of the exoskeleton power suit was only a temporary motive. The real thing was to discuss his birthday with Minato. In the past few years, Minato's opinions are all in one sentence, and he has been regarded as a strategist. 50 years old. Minato stroked his chin. The daimyo's body shouldn't be well right now, right? Well, there are some problems. It is estimated that my eldest brother is about to take up the post, so he is totally indifferent to my little jokes in the past few years. Oda Kenjong chuckled, but he didn't even know the strength of the Shuenja army, thinking that with the support of the other 5 armies, he would be able to sit back and relax. Woo-you. If it's my suggestion, give a pill to Daming. You mean poison? Kenjong Oda was surprised when he heard the words. Is this a bit reckless? It's not a poison, but an extension of life. Minato shook his head and said, my teacher is Haruki, one of Konoha Shwanbi, one of the most powerful medical ninjas in the ninja world. He spends a lot of precious medicinal materials to make daimyo live a few more years. This, Kensho Oda is not too difficult to understand what Minato means. If it weren't for the past few years, he would have suspected that Minato was an undercover agent who was inserted by his side. Do you think who will be more anxious to hear this news? Minato saw him look puzzled and added, your eldest brother is over 35 years old this year. If your daimyo lives for another 10 years, he is 45 years old. Even if he inherits his name, how many years will he live? The average lifespan of the ninja in this period was only in the 50s. There are even fewer ordinary civilians. That's it, Kenjong Oda's eyes lit up. Big brother, he can hardly wait for another 10 years. He can't wait to do stupid things. And we have reason to justify the army. Good. Minato is really a good strategy. If it wasn't for your ambition for Hokage, then my position as the chief minister must be yours. Kenjong Oda said sincerely. The prime minister, even the highest official position under his name, is equivalent to the position of prime minister. Everyone has ambitions, your highness does not have to force it. Minato responded with a smile. Kenjong Oda did not reluctantly, he left after lunch. Minato returned to the room. Teacher, this is for you. Ching Shu handed him the pill and said, there is no magic drug to prolong life in this world, but it can restore him to the vitality of a young man in a short period of time. Yeah. Minato put away the pill and said in a deep voice, the patience of the daimyo and the nobles has almost reached the limit. Maybe my birthday is a perfect opportunity. Haruki nodded. Minato is a ninja after all. Even the daimyo doesn't think he will try, but the other nobles are quite greedy. The master army means to become one of the most powerful people in the land of fire. In the past, the 5 armies were in the hands of the 5 great generals. Only the Xuanjia army, everyone knew that Minato was going to leave. Wait for your highness to do it. Haruki needs a righteousness to stabilize other big names, but the Thunder Country, which advocates military expansion the most in the past 2 years, is already ready to move. In the original work, Tsunade 3rd Cage disappeared and attacked the Kingdom of Wind. But now 3rd Cage is fine. Haruki didn't know where to start Cloud Shinobi Village. The 3rd day. The palace of the daimyo, lanterns and colorful, a festive color. Kenjong Oda was able to meet the daimyo after being notified by the palace maid. After the salute, wait in your place. Time reached 9 o'clock. The hall was filled with hundreds of civil and military officials. Kenjong Oda glanced at his elder brother Hideyoshi Oda, but did not speak. According to the regulations, Hideyoshi Oda was the first to present the gift. Then it was his turn for the 4th place. Kensho Oda waited for a few minutes, then stood up in front of the daimyo with a smile on his face. Father, I heard that my father's health is in trouble, so I specially spend a lot of money to ask Konoha's Haruki for a bottle of pill. According to him, it can prolong life for 10 years after eating it. Shocked 4 people. The daimyo's body trembled visibly, and the smile on his face turned into surprise and urgency. Hurry up and take a look. Kenjong Oda immediately walked up to him. Da Ming snatched the pill, sniffed, and suddenly felt his exhaustion wiped out. He didn't have any doubts. First, Oda Kenjong did not dare to harm himself when the public came down, and second, he had a good sense of Haruki. The name swallowed. An unspeakable sense of comfort spread. He closed his eyes and his face showed a fluttering appearance. Kensho Oda returned to his seat, and then saw Hideyoshi Oda's eyes as if he was about to kill him. In the middle of the night, moonlight poured into the magnificent room. Hideyoshi Oda's handsome face is full of hideousness. There was a mess in front of him. All kinds of porcelain, paper, pens, and books fell into a ball. Damn. Hideo Oda was desperate and broke a beautiful ceramic vase. 10 years. How should I survive these 10 years? What's the point of staying through? He has been waiting for more than 20 years, and hope is right in front of him, but how did his 4th brother come up with such a vicious idea? His Royal Highness. The door was pushed open, and a middle-aged man who was nearly 50 came in. Compared to Oda Hideyoshi, he is not eager nor slow, and very calm. The current minister of the Supreme Court, Takeuchi Udai. Why are you so gaff? He glanced at the ground, shook his head, and said, if it reaches the ears of the daimyo, it will inevitably be chattering for a while. Uncle, I'm so angry. Oda Hideyoshi's mood eased slightly, and he sighed, how can there be a 45 years of His Royal Highness? That bottle of medicine is so magical. Takeuchi frowned. He instinctively didn't believe that there was a panacea for 10 years. The news from my mother said that the body of the daimyo recently looked like a young man in his 20s or 30s. Oda Hideyoshi showed dissatisfaction. He hasn't waited to see his mother for several days. Seeing his lifeless appearance, Takeuchi couldn't help but shook his head. Uncle told you that people who make big things don't stick to the trivial, and they have not yet reached the most desperate period. Do you still have a way? Hideyoshi Oda raised his head, as if grasping the straw. Please tell me, uncle. You now have the support of almost everyone. As long as your name dies, you will be able to take the position. Takeuchi Udai said slowly. Hideyoshi Oda was shocked and straightened up suddenly. Although he wanted to be a big name, He really did not have the idea of killing his father. Uncle, this. Do you want to wait 10 years? Takeuchi's rhetorical question caused Hideyoshi Oda to fall silent. After 10 years, how many years can he live? His expression gradually calmed down, and his eyes showed coldness. Those who are kun can't be indecisive. Takeuchi nodded in satisfaction. What's more, the daimyo was not killed by us, but by Oda Kenjong. The magical pill he offered was too strong, which caused the emptiness in the daimyo to die suddenly. Second, as if to get some psychological comfort, Oda Hideyoshi said, all these are the mistakes of the fourth child, and as the eldest brother, I should correct it. Good. Takeuchi patted him on the shoulder and said, be prepared. 1 week later. The night is dim. Oda Hideyoshi stood at the gate of the palace. Looking through the overlapping buildings, he seemed to see the indulgence in his father's room. The Fire Nation's standing army includes 6 troops, including the new army, but not all of them guard the metropolis. There are 3 in the metropolis. In fact, a new army guarding the palace of the daimyo, a new army stationed in the metropolis, and a new army in the outskirts of Minato. In order to prevent the new army from making trouble, Takeuchi Yudai planned a rebellion 2 days ago and transferred the new army away. Even if they knew it, it was too late to rush back. The remaining 2 teams all support him. In other words, the entire metropolis is his people. How to fight him? Hideyoshi Oda didn't wait long before a samurai came to him on a fast horse. His Royal Highness, Master Takeuchi and General Dayu have already controlled the 12 guardian ninjas, please go. He breathed a sigh of relief immediately. If he is worried about what he is most worried about, it is naturally to guard the 12 ninjamen. As a ninja who protects the daimyo, he is quite strong. But with mental arithmetic or unintentional, it is difficult for them to prevent sneak attacks. What's more, they are protecting the daimyo, and they immediately become the daimyo. Hideyoshi Oda rode into the palace. After crossing the complicated streets, arrived in front of the daimyo's room. Uncle. He got off the horse and greeted Takeuchi Yudai, and then looked at the General Detsu next to him, Etsu Takayuki, who was in charge of guarding the palace. General Dayu, His Royal Highness is polite. Oyoshi Takayuki was wearing armor, took off his helmet and smiled. He is very young, not more than 30 years old. Being able to sit in this position naturally has extraordinary strength. His teacher was Takeuchi Yudai, his father was a general, and his grandfather was also a general. Go in now? Dayu Shaoxing asked, pointing to the room. No hurry. Hideyoshi Oda smiled, let my father be unscrupulous in the end. His Royal Highness is really filial. Dayu Shaoxing fell behind him with the gift of kunshin, expressing his position. The sound in the room is getting weaker and weaker. After a long sound, Hideyoshi Oda waved forward. A group of soldiers entered immediately. The chaos recurred. Please. Takeuchi bowed heavily and stretched out his right hand in a gesture of please. Oda Hideyoshi laughed and drew the long sword from his waist. Yingyi, what do you want to do? The daimyo, who was wearing a pajama, was held up by someone at this time, and didn't realize it until he saw Oda Hideyoshi. But he couldn't believe that his always obedient and well-behaved son wanted to kill him. Father, I can't wait. Oda Hideyoshi shook his head, and stabbed into the daimyo's body with all his strength. Blood sprayed. He lost consciousness for a moment, but then he looked cold and turned around and said, Father is violently killed by the 4th child's medicine. Please take General Dayu to his residence and arrest him. Lead. Dayu Shaoxing looked serious and said, if not tonight, he will definitely be taken in front of the daimyo. A smile suddenly appeared on Oda Hideyoshi's face. Dayu Shaoxing turned over, put on his helmet, and flicked his horsewhip. Groups of soldiers lined up, following him, galloping like thunder, toward the outside of the palace. It deserves to be the most elite army in the country of fire. When Oda Hideyoshi saw the black, he couldn't help but exclaimed, it would be cheap for him to have such a large array of faces before his death. After all, he is the 4th Highness. Takeuchi walked to his side and smiled, the people in this room also need to be dealt with. Kill it. Hideyoshi Oda gave orders without hesitation. Now you are a qualified daimyo, please call 100 officials tomorrow, but what needs to be guarded is that someone takes the opportunity to rebel. Takeuchi Yudai didn't think there was any problem with his cruelty. He added, the other 3 armies, General Yamazaki needs to be vigilant. He usually has a very ordinary attitude towards you. And Namikaze Minato's black armor, he is Konoha after all, and he is not easy to use force. Please take the time as the time has come. You ordered him to step down and return to Konoha. Just as uncle said. Hideyoshi Oda nodded. Oyoshi Takayuki left the palace all the way to Oda Kensho's house, but found that there was no one. The next day, countless leaflets were flying over the metropolis of the country of fire. The content is a photo. Hideyoshi Oda thrust the long sword into the daimyo's body with a fierce look. Then, Kensho Oda and the Hyunjia army who suppressed the bandits in Ibaraki attacked the metropolis with the slogan of the Ching-kun side. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 176 Hall of the Land of Fire. Oda Hideyoshi sat on it high, he held his forehead, his expression was gloomy, and his whole body exuded my very uncomfortable aura. Within a day, his heroic deeds spread throughout the metropolis. I don't know how many people talked about his actions behind his back. As for Oda Kenjong and the 10,000 people of the Zanja army, he did not see him in his eyes. The 5 armies loyal to him add up to more than 100,000, and 10,000 is just a drop in the bucket. He doesn't believe that he holds the trump card. Can he be beaten by his 4th brother in seconds? The civil and military officials in the hall did not say a word, and were exceptionally silent in the suppressed atmosphere. Many of them have seen the photo, but the matter is now, Oda Hideyoshi has become the winner, and no matter how slander it is of no use. The only role is to make Oda Hideyoshi add to the block. Da Ming. Takeuchi took a step forward and respectfully said. The people who spread the rumors in Metropolis have dealt with it. No one dares to talk about it anymore. Please feel relieved. The top priority is Oda Kensho, who resolves the rebellion. He was thousands of miles away in Ibaraki, so he could react so quickly. As if your father had just died, they got the news. This just proves that the pill he gave to your father is faulty, and the photo is framed to deceive the people of the country of fire. The crime is damned. Master Takeuchi is very reasonable. Hideyoshi Oda raised his head with a smile on his face. If he didn't know the truth, he himself would believe his words. Where is my rebellious brother now? He and the Shuenja army left Ibaraki and landed at Seigan port at a very fast speed. Takeuchi picked up a secret report and said, General Yamazaki's army has been ordered to go. General Yamazaki? Oda Hideyoshi was taken aback, and immediately praised, General Yamazaki will win all battles and he will be able to retrieve the 4th head for me. He looked at Takeuchi Udai, who looked indifferent, and couldn't help sighing. Sure enough, Jong was still old and spicy. Yesterday I told him that General Yamazaki might be dissatisfied, and he was sent to the front today. General Yamazaki's army of 15,000, if it fails, it will naturally solve the worries of the future. Even if it wins, it must be a miserable victory. Once and again, only oneself can stand invincible. 10,000 troops formed several neat arrays, and the black exoskeleton power suit glowed with the color of steel in the sun. Kenjong Oda looked from a distance, like a dense black cloud, rising into the sky. It is inevitable that a wave of pride rises in his heart. Namikaze Minato was beside him, wearing an exoskeleton power suit, and he couldn't see clearly what he looked like. He saw the dense army on the opposite side with excellent eyesight. It seems that they got the news ahead of time. Because of the exoskeleton power suit, they're very fast. But this is the case, and his whereabouts are also known. It seems that the other armies of the Land of Fire are not as unbearable as imagined. Although my eldest brother is not talented, the civil and military officials are always capable of doing things. Kensho Oda glanced at the banner on the wall and said, It's Yamazaki Hashiryu. He has 15 soldiers and horses under him. Are you going to fight head-on? Namikaze Minato shook his head blankly. Compared with the 36 strategies that Shinshu teacher told him, these so-called troops only know how to cut, and they don't know too much flexibility. Fighting is comparing to the number of people. It is a pity that he is going to tell the nobles of the country of fire today that the times have changed, and the number of people does not mean anything. Yamazaki Bridge Dragon is best at fighting head-on. It's not surprising that he can make this decision. Kenjong Oda had some understanding of the Admiral Army. Here we go. Namikaze Minato raised his brows and saw the army in front of him slowly move forward. After a while, the iron cavalry in front of the army instigated the reins, violently speeding up and surging towards the Zanja army like a tide. The sound of rumbling horses' hooves shook the air. There are echoing sounds for hundreds of miles. Reload the pheasant rider. Kensho Oda looked a little nervous. He took a deep breath and explained, the heavy-duty pheasant ride built by the Yamazaki army is composed of the best horses and the most elite soldiers, coupled with the iron armor all over the body, and the long-handled pheasant is a real battlefield killer. Namikaze Minato nodded. Such a cavalry has been able to cause a certain amount of lethality to the ninja. Not to mention that he saw this heavy cavalry mixed with many samurai who can use chakra. Minato, are you sure? Kenjong Oda only knows the auxiliary function of the exoskeleton power suit but does not know all of it. Facing the heavy pheasant rider like a steel forest, he felt a little unconfident for a while. His Royal Highness, don't worry. Namikaze Minato raised his right hand. As if commanded, the 3,000 profound armor troops in front of him dispersed in a line to avoid accidental injury, and immediately all raised his right arm. There was a sound of rotating mechanical gears. The steel shell on the right arm suddenly cracked, revealing a Gatling machine gun with 4 barrels intertwined. His Royal Highness, you have only one mission. Make sure you don't let the course of this battle leak out. Okay. Kenjong Oda drove away. In addition to Namikaze Minato's 10,000 mysterious armor army, he also spent money to summon a 3,000-man mercenary. The only function is to block messages, but he walked for less than a few seconds, and suddenly there was a loud noise. Kenjong Oda comforted the steed under the seat and looked back. Almost at the same time, 3,000 machine guns spun wildly and fired all at once. Even in the daytime, Kensho Oda saw a blue flame that was several meters long. In an instant, it reached the sky above the heavy pheasant rider and the continuous tremors suddenly sounded. The bullets made by the detonating talisman burned and burst one by one. The nearest soldier immediately buzzed his head, and blood overflowed from his ears. But the worst was the heavy pheasant rider in the center of the explosion. Known as one of the most powerful cavalry in the Land of Fire, it has dissipated. No one survived from a huge pit of several hundred meters. There were blood-colored remains all around, and there were 2,000 people unable to find a complete corpse. The flame is still burning, but the whole world was so quiet that there was no sound. The Xuanzhao army using Gatling looked stunned and incredulous. It seemed that I couldn't believe that the hellish scene in front of me was caused by myself. Since they joined the army, they have thought that one day they will die on the battlefield, but such a thing is indeed unimaginable. After hearing the explosion, Yamazaki Bridge Dragon on the city wall was completely bloodless. If the whole person were not supporting the city wall, the next moment would be paralyzed to the ground. The heavy pheasant knight he was proud of was destroyed in just a few seconds. And he still doesn't understand what kind of weapon is that braving the blue flame. But no matter what weapon it was, he knew he was gone. A few days later, Hideyoshi Oda has never been so angry and scared. His fourth brother was attacking the metropolis at a speed he could not imagine. The cannibal devil marches towards Jinsui City. General Yamazaki is captured. The usurper enters Deu. General Mochizuki died in battle. Kanaki Oda occupied Iwa Castle. General Hirayama surrendered. Hideyoshi Oda took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. But the irritability in words still cannot be concealed. Enough. Shut up. Stop reading. The hall was quiet. All the civil and military officials dare not speak. Many of them are secretly considering their future. They are nobles, no matter who is a big name, as long as they don't affect them, they don't care at all. But for the time being, I can't show it. Da Ming. Oiwei Shaoxing stepped up with a confident expression and said, there are nearly 50,000 troops of General Ogawa and I standing here in the metropolis, so there is no need to worry. When Oda Hideyoshi heard this, the fear in his heart was slightly reduced. The main reason is that his fourth brother is too fast, and so far has not received a specific battle process. There must be something strange in this. What is it that makes Kensho Oda so powerful? Do you know what the Xuanzhao army's new equipment is? Hideyoshi Oda thought about it, but this is the only possibility. But no one in the hall could answer. First, apart from the daimyo, no one had ever seen Skyfire. The second is that when Minato is training, the master does not have much new equipment and the confidentiality measures are done very well. Even if someone probes, they can only see their strange training methods. Oda Hideyoshi saw his civil and military officials not saying a word and suddenly felt annoyed. If he didn't have to rely on them to guard the metropolis, he would have to scold this group of trash well. For 7 years, no one has paid attention to the new equipment of the Xuanzhao army? The arrogance of the nobility is undoubtedly revealed. On the night when the Chalwi dispersed, Dayu Shaoxing learned the news of the soldiers approaching the city. He and Ogawa Taro lived high on the city wall, and all the troops were hidden in the metropolis. As the most magnificent and prosperous city in the Land of Fire, its walls are also the tallest and thickest. They learned the experience of the previous few times and prepared to defend the city. I have never understood. Ogawa Taro stared at the mysterious armor army in the distance. Although their armor looks bluffing, they are all well-trained soldiers. Why can they solve the other 3 armies so quickly? I also do not understand. Ogoshi Takayuki frowned and asked, I actually suspect that it is not the new equipment, but the ninja. Ninja? Yes, you should know the magic of ninjas. Namikaze Minato is a ninja from Konoha. He is fully capable of arranging a ninja to act as a surprise weapon and lay down traps. The more filial piety he said, the more reasonable he felt. He has seen ninja traps, and for ordinary troops, it is a disaster. The 3 armies in the front all chose to be hard-headed. It is normal to fall into a trap while charging. If such a situation occurs in the battlefield, it will almost be defeated. No wonder Oda Kenjong wants to block the news. If we learn about this strange soldier, we must be prepared. Ogawa Taro nodded. He agreed with Ogoshi Takayuki's statement. But now we rely on the city wall, and their acrobatics won't have a moment to set a trap. Ogoshi Takayuki sneered. This is really our perfect opportunity. Once Kensho Oda is overthrown, you and I will be equal to each other and become the 2 most powerful generals in the Land of Fire. General Da Yu said absolutely. Ogawa Taro's heart was full of enthusiasm. The remaining 3 armies have become history. He and Da Yu Shaoxing's army are the only seedlings. Hideyoshi Oda can only rely on them in the future. Even if the army is rebuilt, how can it be compared to them in a short time? Imagining the future, Ogawa Taro waited for the Xuanzhao army to approach, raised his hand and shouted, Archer prepares. He can defend the metropolis by relying on his Ogawa archers. The perfect combination of cavalry and archer. If it is a normal war, they should be used as the vanguard, shooting back and forth on the plains, continuously causing an overwhelming rain of arrows to the enemy army. Taro Ogawa uses 100 as a group, and according to special training, it can be seamlessly connected. But now because he wants to defend the city, he has lost his mobility, but as a simple archer, he is far more elite than an average archer. Countless arrow feathers flew from the city wall, drew a beautiful arc in the sky, and then all fell down. Wait, something is wrong. Da Yu Shaoxing's eyes suddenly condensed. As one of the 5 admiral troops, he is not weaker than Jianan. In his line of sight, all the arrow feathers passed through the Xuanjia army and plunged into the ground one after another. It seems that the Xuanjia army does not exist, it's illusion. Da Yu Shaoxing was not surprised and rejoiced, which proved his previous guess that there really is a ninja soldier. The first 3 generals must have been ignorant for a while and fell into the trap by mistake. Ogawa Taro immediately stopped shooting his bow and arrow. The level of the 2 of them is not low, although they are not as good as the 3 ships of the Iron Country. Chakra's application can be regarded as a better understanding. I saw him pull out the long knife, the purple lightning speed reached the ultimate, and the sky of sword light was raised in front of him. The illusion burst suddenly. Da Yu Shaoxing was trying to praise his mastery of swordsmanship, but suddenly froze in place. In front of them, a huge fortress was suspended in the sky. What is this? Taro Ogawa never expected such a dreamlike thing to appear after the illusion was unlocked. Move the castle. How did it fly up? Just as his thoughts were flooding, the sky fortress lit up countless lights. Like fireworks, it rose from the ground, followed a specific trajectory, and landed in the metropolis at an extremely fast speed. As it approached, Ogoshi Takayuki and Ogawa Taro could clearly see that they were all mysterious soldiers wearing exoskeleton power suits. It's over. They stared, one after another meteors ignited and fell. What is this? They envisioned all the methods of attack. But I never thought of the scene in front of me. God soldiers come from heaven. Palace. Hideyoshi Oda is waiting for news. Suddenly a big hole broke through his head. A soldier of the Xuanjia army appeared in front of him. He didn't react for a while. Brother, long time no see. Familiar voice. Kanaki Oda, how did you get here? Oda Hideyoshi stood up suddenly, his face hurriedly shouted, come here, escort, escort. It's useless, no one will come to rescue you if you break your throat. Kenjong Oda shook his head and said, look at the sky outside, isn't it beautiful? Hideyoshi Oda was paralyzed in his seat. In the big hole in the ceiling, countless sparks were burning. Namikaze Minato appeared in front of the 2 of them, glanced at Hideyoshi Oda, then at Kensho Oda, and smiled. Welcome your highness to your own metropolis. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 177 Assassination of Tsunade Project, 5th. Hokage assists the office. Haruki is dealing with official duties. He used to share an office with Tsunade, but with Konoha's continuous development, he also had to set up his own office. Otherwise, Tsunade's Hokage office will become a filing room full of various materials. Nearly 7 years have passed since Tsunade became the 4th Hokage. According to the new Hokage selection system, she can actually be regarded as the 5th Hokage. But since it was still her, there was no change. In the second Hokage election, Tsunade was still elected with a high number of votes. But Haruki did not intervene like the first time, purely because Konoha was too prosperous. Tsunade's reputation reached an unimaginable peak. It almost surpassed her grandfather Senju Hashirama. In the history course offered by Konoha Daiichi University, she clearly stated her contribution. The editor gave her evaluation. She raised the torch and lit the darkness of Konoha. The dawn sun broke the dark clouds, so it was covered with golden prosperity. Close black lens bracket. However, in the next Hokage election, Tsunade can no longer participate. Within 7 years, Konoha established a legal department, and it was clear about the law elected by Hokage. Any resident with a Konoha ID card has the right to become a Hokage, but he will be re-elected for a maximum of 10 years and 2 terms, after which there will be an interval of 5 years before he can re-elect. At the same time, it is stipulated that after Hokage resigns, he shall not hold any position, and shall not influence the successor Hokage in any way. Teacher Haruki. Please come in. Haruki raised his head and looked at the 5-year-old kid who came in, Uchiha Shisui. He is now a second-year student in ninja school. Like the original, he has a cheerful personality and extremely high talent. He is already a man in the elementary school, and even the 6th grade students are not his opponents. As expected, he is a guy with a higher talent than Uchiha Itachi. Seeing the joy of hunting, Haruki accepted him as a student. And his 3 original students, Hitaki Kakashi, Uchiha Obito and Nohara Lin, are 12 years old this year, and have entered the university early. In addition to the necessary theoretical classes, most of the time is outside to perform tasks. Not to mention Uchiha Makoto, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kashina. Has long become Jonin. Makoto married Uchiha Fugaku and gave birth to Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Itachi, 3 years old this year, has had a hard time. Reading and practicing under the supervision of my mother every day, I experience school life in advance. Although Minato and Kashina have confirmed the relationship between boy and girl friends, they are not yet married. Teacher, it's news from Master Minato. Shisui handed a scroll. Because of his high strength, he didn't like to be with his peers, so Haruki was chartered to help under Shinji era. Let me see. Haruki opened the scroll, and after watching it for a few minutes, he was not surprised that Minato had achieved the results. After the aerial fortress has been transformed, it has become a mobile fort. Change the slow speed in the original work. Use the network and radar to match the ninja's perception ability. The Sky Fortress can keep Jonin's speed while firing cannons comparable to Tailed Beast Bomb indefinitely. In addition, the fortress is equipped with flying armor. The so-called flying armor is to increase the use of wind style on the basis of the exoskeleton power suit to obtain the ability to fly. Supplemented by the ejection of the air fortress. They can cover anywhere in the country of fire within a minute. The premise is 9 tails as the core power. Judging from the Minato report, they didn't use the fortress of the air fortress at all, and they breached the metropolis. I write a reply. Haruki took out the blank scroll and began to write. After the fire country was taken, the matter was not completely over. He needs Kensho Oda to be a puppet for a while, but how to solve it, he hasn't thought about it yet. But it does not hinder Minato's actions. He should be the person Oda Kensho trusts most now. After all, Minato wouldn't stay to fight for his power, so what he said was especially useful. Within 7 years, Kenjong Oda has won the support of many people. But what he didn't know was that more than half of them were members of the Sha organization. Minato didn't just train the army. What's more, nearly 8,000 people from the 10,000 Shuenja army joined the Sha organization. Unless Kenjong Oda has the ability to penetrate the sky, he is destined to be a puppet. Give the letter to Shinji Hira. Okay, teacher. Shisui took the scroll and immediately disappeared in front of him. This kid's body flicker technique really has a talent that far surpasses others. Haruki remembered his title and instantly became Shisui. The original work was obtained in the Third Ninja World War. But I don't know if he still has a chance to catch up now. He glanced at the sky, got up, stretched, and went to the Hokage office next door. Soon. Huh, why are you here, Luosha? Chingshu opened the door and saw an unexpected person, Luo Sha. At this time, Luo Sha was 25 years old and was already the mainstay of Tsunade, second only to the master of Third Kazekage. Oh no, it should be second only to Third Kazekage and Sasori. That's right, Sasori now surpasses Third Kazekage and Rosha by virtue of his outrageous puppet. At this time of the original work, Luo Sha is the 4th Kazekage. But since Third Kazekage is not dead, he is temporarily unable to take the post. Master Haruki. Luo Sha greeted her with a stern face. Look at these two news. Tsunade looked serious and handed the Haruki scroll. Haruki frowned slightly. The first news came from Cloud Shinobi Village. Third Raikage applied to Konoha to hold a joint Chunin exam. This is nothing. After all, between villages, Chunin exams are often held. This is a bit like a military exercise in a previous life, showing the demeanor of the younger generation. The second news is very explosive. Third Raikage offered to cooperate with Third Kazekage. They plan to assassinate Tsunade on the Chunin exam, leaving the group of dragons headless, and immediately declare war on the country of fire. There are two main reasons stated. One is that the strength of 4th Hokage Tsunade is not too strong. She is a medical ninja who prefers assistance. The second is the recent rebellion of the Fire Nation, which has led to a decline in power. As long as Konoha is defeated, the Fire Nation can be easily taken. Cloud Shinobi Village makes a lot of sense, why don't you agree? Haruki closed the scroll and asked with a smile. This plan is really familiar. Tsunade is not a fool. Fighting Konoha with you will not do us any good. Rosa shook his head. Although he doesn't like Haruki, more than 2/3 of Tsunade's income in recent years has been brought by Konoha. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is apparent. Moreover, Cloud Shinobi Village is far stronger than their Tsunade. Even if they win the battle against the tiger, how much benefit can they get in the face of Cloud Shinobi Village? Conversely, if they cooperate with Konoha and win Cloud Shinobi Village, there will be many benefits. Keep the original economy and trade unchanged and increase additional income. Why not do it? In the first 2 years, Luo Sha had the idea that Tsunade became the shape of Konoha Village, which is very bad, but now I only feel that it is the greatest honor to be a Konoha dog. Of course this is an exaggeration. They and Konoha Village are good friends who respect each other, do not violate each other, and are equal and mutually beneficial. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 178 Chunin Exam, 2-in-1. Tsunade, what do you think? Haruki handed the scroll to Tsunade's apprentice, the current secretary of Hokage, Uzumaki Porya. Her growth over the past few years is amazing. His own talent is not too bad, followed Kushina to learn the sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan, and became an excellent medical ninja under the teaching of Tsunade. In general, it is not an exaggeration to say that they are among the elite of Jonin. Although it tends to support, rather than combat. Tsunade did not immediately answer Haruki's question. He pondered for a moment, and said, the idea of Cloud Shinobi Village has been exposed. Even if Tsunade does not cooperate with them, it is nothing more than a lost opportunity, but it will still look for another opportunity. If so, it's better to take the lead in giving Cloud Shinobi Village a heavy blow while we are in the dark. Haruki nodded. He agreed with Tsunade's statement. Cloud Shinobi Village will never let it go. In the original work, he almost fought with Tsunade, Konoha Village, and Iwagakure at the same time, and he was quite ambitious. Losa, When you came over, did anyone know? Haruki looked at Luasha on the side and asked. No, no one knows except the teacher. After receiving the secret letter from Cloud Shinobi village, I rushed over by rail. But I left a clone in the original village. As long as I don't check it closely, I won't notice the abnormality. Rosha shook his head. Whether it was Third Kage or he understood the seriousness of the matter, and they had the same intention of cooperation as Tsunade, so they acted very secretly. Well, in that case, we can agree to Cloud Shinobi Village's request for a joint Chunin exam. It just so happens that a group of students have reached Chunin's level recently. With this opportunity, we can do 1 or 2 tests. Haruki remembered that in Obito's memory, there was indeed a Chunin exam. And the most outrageous Kakashi, who was already Chunin at the time, even came back to participate and graduated with Obito and Rin Nohara. But now, the 3 of them have indeed not yet become Chunin. Haruki touched his chin, recalling the geniuses at this stage. Since Cloud Shinobi Village dared to submit this application, I would like to have the confidence of winning. But he doesn't know much. Could it be that 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer Bee ended up personally? Killer Bee looks more anxious and is not over 20 years old this year. Being able to participate is naturally able to participate. In the case of 8 Tails Jinchuriki, Kakashi and Obito are not necessarily rivals. But Haruki is not worried because there are Might Guy and Sasori. Tsunade, let Sasori participate. Haruki raised his head and smiled. With the puppet he transformed, no one must be his opponent. Luo Sha gave him a surprised look. According to normal thinking, Konoha's final victory should be more in line with Haruki's expectations. He hesitated, but did not refuse. Sasori has spent most of the past few years in Konoha. His strength is indeed unimaginable. In fact, as a puppet master, his body is not very strong, but with the help of Haruki at all costs, his puppet is getting more and more outrageous. Rosha had fought him once or twice, and she couldn't bear to look back. Fortunately, he has no interest in Fengying, otherwise, in a few years, he will be Luosha's enemy. Because Sasori is no less than him, regardless of status or strength. Besides, he has other advantages. Haruki especially likes him. According to Konoha's influence on Tsunade, this advantage is infinite. How do we Tsunade cooperate with you? Luo Sha recovered and asked. He can distinguish the priorities, and against Cloud Shinobi Village, which is far beyond Tsunade's strength, they can play support. There is nothing to cooperate. Let's take the Chunin exam in the normal process. Luo Sha's mouth twitched slightly. He wanted to say, could he give Tsunade some face? Don't you even give me the opportunity to assist? Forget it, it's good to lie down and win. If you can, leave third Raikage for the Chunin exam. Tsunade suddenly raised his head and said coldly. Luo Sha's body shook. Leave third Raikage? This goal is too whimsical. As recognized as the fastest man in the ninja world, it is really easy for third Raikage to run. Well, Namikaze Minato is not yet completely famous, not as good as third Raikage. Haruki glanced at Tsunade in astonishment. This understatement was like a queen. Based on what I know about her, it is not an angry word, but a confident one. Tsunade will do our best. Luo Sha bowed slightly and said seriously. Anyway, the 2 shinobi villages unite. Even if they can't keep the third Raikage, it can cause a significant blow to Cloud Shinobi Village. If nothing happens, I will go back to Tsunade first. Luo Sha asked again. Wait, I remember you got married last year? Haruki asked, remembering something. Yes, Karuura. Haruki-sama, do you have any doubts about this? Luo Sha was puzzled. He wanted to explain that he invited Haruki to the wedding, but he was too busy to refuse. It is too strange to ask this question again. I'm just a little curious, when do you plan to have a baby? Luo Sha's heart beat. What's the meaning? What does it matter to you whether I have a baby or not? Haruki realized that his problem was indeed easy to misunderstand. I heard Sasori say that your Jinchuriki seal is not good. If you want, you can send someone over to learn a few seals. He didn't say that he would let people pass, so that the purpose is too strong. But this is the case. Luo Sha still showed vigilance on her face. The tail beast is Tsunade's bottom line. Under the premise that he didn't know Haruki's strength, the tail beast could give them the greatest sense of security, and no one was allowed to mix it up. But their sealing technique is really bad. In the original game, Gaara couldn't sleep and caused big dark circles. If it weren't for one tail Shohei's weakest strength, it would have been a problem. But runaways are common. I know what you were worried about, but I don't have to deal with your tail beast. Seeing his demeanor, Haruki couldn't help but smiled. Besides, I don't need to use such complicated methods. Luo Sha was slightly startled. Although Haruki really made sense, it sounded insulting and harmless. He nodded and said, if Haruki-sama is willing to be generous, I will choose a few students who are gifted in sealing arts to come to Konoha University as exchange students. 4 years ago, Haruki sent someone to reach a deal with Tsunade's ninja school. Send a group of students to each other every year. One is to deepen contact, and the other is to learn from each other. Tsunade is very good in puppet master, wind style, etc. Konoha is more comprehensive. In general, Tsunade takes advantage of it. Luo Sha left with certain doubts, and he planned to go back and ask if Karuora and Haruki are dating. Haruki turned his head and saw Tsunade's interrogative expression. She put her arms around her chest and said, "What did you just mean?" "Just help one's allies." Haruki glanced at the Poria behind her and did not act too intimately. He liked Gaara in his previous life. Since I met, it's just a matter of effort. This will prevent Tsunade from turmoil. What he wants is a stable ally. Tsunade snorted softly, but didn't bother with this question either. For more than 10 years, she knew the roots of Haruki. Although he sometimes had strange decisions, the facts finally proved his correctness. "Have you heard from Minato?" Ching Shu stepped forward, handed a glass of warm water, and smiled. "My lady queen, please drink." Tsunade gave him a blank look. Can this guy look at the occasion? But when she thought of the absurd things she had done in this office over the past few years, she knew she would never expect Haruki. "I received." Tsunade took a sip of water and said, "It seems that the exoskeleton power suit and the aerial fortress are very successful. Once you enter the ninja war, there should be unexpected results. HMPH, Cloud Shinobi Village has found the wrong opponent this time. Even without these, they cannot be our opponents." Haruki said flatly. Since Konoha encouraged childbirth, the population has expanded rapidly. When Tsunade first became Hokage, the first census was 95,000, and now it is 120,000. Among them, the regular army of ninjas has nearly 30,000. Of course, the newly added population includes Fire Country residents who are admitted to Konoha University because of their talents. Tsunade nodded slightly when he heard the words. As Hokage, she is the person who knows Konoha best besides Haruki. Minato assisted Kenjong Oda to become a daimyo, and according to my request, all the Shuenja army was dispersed and used as an instructor to rebuild a new army for the country of fire. The Shuenja army has more than 8,000 members of the Sha organization, and they absolutely pass the ideological level. They bring the new with the old. Within a few years, all the troops of the Fire Nation will become the Sha organization. But the Chunin exam at Cloud Shinobi Village gave me another idea. In the usual joint examinations, it is very likely that the daimyo will be invited to come. Kanaki Oda has just succeeded and needs a stage urgently. This time is a good opportunity for him. Haruki smiled and said, "If daimyo is accidentally killed by Cloud Shinobi Village's attack, we have enough reasons. Whether it is to fight Cloud Shinobi Village or let Minato temporarily take over Fire Country. Wait until the end of the war. It may become forever for the time being." Tsunade raised his head and looked at him. "I have to say that Haruki's strategy is simple and vicious. Oh no, it's smart. Are you going to make Minato a big name? Naturally not. I don't even have time to be lazy." Tsunade couldn't help complaining. She knew that Haruki wanted her to be the name of the country of fire. "You are a princess handpicked by your predecessor, and you have some blood. Succession is reasonable." Haruki shrugged. Tsunade became a princess because her mother was the daughter of daimyo, country of fire. Otherwise, why was she canonized as a princess for no reason? If it was simply because of Senju Hashirama, it would not be justified at all. And not only the country of fire and Konoha, but also other ninjas in Ninja Village when they see Tsunade, they all call them princesses. Don't the other sons and daughters of the daimyo have opinions? He has no other children. Haruki sighed and said, perhaps because of the wrong position, after Kensho Oda became a daimyo, he disposed of his brothers and sisters. It really is the ruthless emperor's house. Tsunade frowned slightly. She clearly remembered that Kenjong Oda was quite famous before this. But what he is doing now is completely another person. This is the drawback of pooling power in one person. Haruki quickly changed the subject. I called Anbu to notify Minato and asked him to invite the daimyo to visit the Chunin exam. If you want to register, you can participate after the leader Jonin agrees. Although Konoha does not have the form of genin graduation, he still maintains the One Belt 3 system. The advantages of this system outweigh the disadvantages. Even in the previous life, the workshop and so on were all implemented by the system of mentoring and apprenticeship. Tsunade looked at Poria and said, Poria, go and inform them. Okay, Lord Hokage. By the way, let Shizune also participate. Although she is a medical ninja, she must know how to cooperate with her teammates. After Tsunade said this, he paused and said to Haruki, you have been the president of Konoha University. Assign 2 teammates to this disciple of mine. Let me see. Haruki didn't expect Tsunade to say this, thought for a moment, and said, Guy and Shisui. Shisui? Isn't he just 5 years old? Tsunade is not too surprised by Guy, she knows Guy's 8 inner gates. After receiving Shenong's medical forbidden technique, she made a certain transformation of the 8 inner gates. Because Guy doesn't know how to treat ninjutsu, she uses another method. Elixirs. Like the secret medicine of the Akamichi clan. After eating, it can offset the side effects of 8 inner gates in a short time. Therefore, she trusts Guy's strength. But for Shisui, Tsunade didn't know much about it. Although he knew he was a student of Haruki, he couldn't be a peerless genius again. Shisui has turned on Sharingan, Haruki explained. However, Shisui's eye-opening method is completely different from the original. He is because of the game. With the development of network technology, League of Legends turned out to be the most popular game. Haruki launched an esports competition at Konoha University. Shisui was specifically asked to participate. After a year or so, he opened Sharingan. Mainly because of Haruki's secret operation, his team has never won a few. At the bottom of the 12 teams at Konoha University. This. Really? Tsunade opened his mouth and said with emotion, why do the Uchiha clan always come out with geniuses? Who knows? Haruki leaves the office, finds Shisui, and asks him to send another letter to Anbu. At the same time, I also told him about the Chunin exam. He was obviously excited. Because of the rules of Konoha University, he could not graduate early like the original work. He had to wait at least 6 years of elementary school before he could skip a grade and enter university. At the current Konoha University, the first 6 years of education are compulsory, and everyone must complete it. Don't be too happy, I have broken the rules by letting you take the Chunin exam, so you have to prepare well. Haruki knocked on his head, your opponents are geniuses from various Shinobu villages. They are not your classmates at school. Is teacher? Shisui nodded seriously, but the emotion on her little face still did not hide. Your teammates are Might Guy and Shizune, go find them and get in touch with each other these days. Okay, wait, take this letter to Anbu and ask them to pass it to Minato. Haruki stopped Shisui who was about to run away. Shisui smiled embarrassedly and almost forgot the business. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 179 The Shaken Uchiha Madara, 2 in 1. Fulling did not announce the news of the Chunin exam for the first time. Cloud Shinobi Village hides some spies in Konoha. Although Haruki has checked most of the list, he is not sure that he knows it completely. To announce the news now will naturally arouse suspicion. 2 days later, the messenger from Cloud Shinobi Village arrived late. Haruki and Tsunade received them at Hokage's office. There are 3 people in total. The leader is called Uchino Yi, who is about 30 years old, has short yellowish hair and dark skin. The strength is the Jonin level. He bowed slightly, handed the application form, and said, Master Raikage wants to jointly hold the Chunin exam with Konoha. I wonder if Master Hokage agrees? Tsunade glanced at the application form, and it was all scenes. She was silent for a moment, pretending to think. Originally Konoha planned to hold a Chunin exam in the near future. Since Raikage is interested, I naturally agree. Tsunade smiled faintly and asked, what does Raikage have to say about the location and test content? No, Raikage-sama said, the guest is up to the owner, and everything is up to Konoha. Uchino Yi's attitude is very peaceful and respectful. Tsunade can't help but change Raikage. Everyone in the ninja world knows that Raikage has a hot temper, but judging from the choice of the messenger, there are rough but fine points. Yeah, it's the shadow of Cloud Shinobi Village anyway, it doesn't make sense to be a reckless guy. Tsunade nodded and said, I will let the ninja school draw up an exam content. As for the location, it's in the Death Forest of Konoha. The venue is spacious enough. Subject to what Master Hokage said, Uchino didn't have any comments. Please inform Raikage and send someone to participate in time, 2 weeks from now. Tsunade thought slightly, considering some small Shinobu villages, she was not in a hurry. Besides, Cloud Shinobi Village is quite far from Konoha. After Ueno Yi left Hokage's office, he followed Poria to the hotel special for reception. After entering Konoha, he and the 2 behind him were in a state of shock. Uchino once came to Konoha for a mission. But now Konoha is completely different from what he had in his impression, and has reached a point where he can't understand it. Towering modern buildings. Unidentified objects running on 4 wheels on a wide and tidy street. All kinds of high-voltage wires. Billboards on both sides and beautiful movie star posters. Thanks. After Ueno Yi thanked Fulling, he entered the magnificent hotel. Really incredible. His teammate Bawi couldn't help exclaiming when he left in Fulling. As a woman, she naturally likes golden things. The golden and jade relationships that can be seen everywhere on the side of the road really made her feel moved. She is ready to go shopping after finishing the business. Although spies occasionally send back news, after seeing it with their own eyes, I only feel that the content of the news is not false, but too rough. Uchino Yi picked up the blue and white porcelain teapot on the coffee table, and it was exquisitely carved, which made him feel that he shouldn't be here, but should be a collection of a nobleman. At any rate, I have also experienced strong winds and waves, how come it's like a dumpling entering the city? He put down the teapot, took out paper and pen, wrote that Tsunade agreed to the application, and asked Raikage to send someone over. At the end of the letter, he described what he had seen and heard in Konoha. In one sentence, a magnificent and golden Shinobu village. I have to say that the modern Konoha has given him a great impact. The news of the joint Chunin exam soon passed the publication and publicity department of Okikai, with the help of the internet, TV and ubiquitous outdoor screens, almost within an hour, so that the entire Konoha residents had already known. At the same time, Anbu also sent a message to Genin who was on a mission outside. If you want to take the Chunin exam, you should ask Jonin, the team leader, for instructions. If not, you can register directly. Haruki and Tsunade didn't consider cheating or anything, and those who had won Chunin and Jonin could no longer participate. This made many people sigh. As Konoha grew stronger, a sense of national pride was naturally born. Especially when performing tasks outside, this feeling is even stronger. There is no harm if there is no comparison. Even Tsunade, who prospered because of Konoha, seems to them that the gap is quite large. A very interesting data that shows this emotion. In Tsunade's 7 years as Hokage, there hasn't been a single traitor. It is incredible. Even in the Senju Hashirama period, there will be 2 or 5 children. The fundamental reason is that Konoha surpasses other shinobu villages so much that no one is willing to give up the favorable conditions and defect. Besides, Anbu and Konoha Police Department are not jealous, and they can't get out of Konoha without any strength. Lin, look at this news. Uchiha Obito suddenly appeared in front of Nohara Lin and Hitaki Kakashi. He who owns Sharingan serves as a perception ninja in the team. What news? Nohara Lin smiled. At the age of 12, she became more gentle and generous, a standard Yamato-like woman. Kakashi glanced at Obito, and based on his knowledge of him, it was probably not a dangerous sign. You know when you look at it. Chunin exam? Yi Yuan Lin glanced at the message on the note, startled slightly, and then smiled. You two will be stronger than Chunin tomorrow morning. If it weren't for me to drag you back. Do not talk like that. Obito interrupted her, and one hand scratched her head subconsciously. Are we a team? We must be promoted together. Right, Kakashi? Oh yes. Kakashi was thinking about the Chunin exam, but when he was called out, he responded casually. Kakashi. Obito glared at him because of his perfunctory attitude. Well, you too, according to Anbu's message, if we want to participate, we need the teacher's consent. Nohara Lin raised the note, stood up, and said, after finishing our task, let's go back to Konoha. Hey, I'm tired of the spooky weather here, it rains at every turn, it's true. Obito first smiled at Nohara Lin, then complained about the bad weather in the country of rain. The task they performed was not difficult. They were a caravan escorting the Oshima Chamber of Commerce. After a simple meal, they followed the caravan to move on, aiming at the southwest side of the rain country. On the ground where they left, White Zetsu's head emerged. Does Chunin take an exam? He disappeared again? Somewhere in the cave, Uchiha Madara looked even older. He seemed to be able to see his own limit. A few years ago, after being beaten by Haruki in Water Country, he thought about going back, but it didn't take long before he was discovered by Haruki, and he received a blast. Is my dignified Uchiha Madara shameless? The experience was so severe that he didn't want to recall it. The Water Country was also forced to give up. Uchiha Madara put his focus on Akatsuki and Uchiha Obito. The Akatsuki organization is growing step by step, and the conflict with Rain Shinobi village Hanzo is getting worse. It only takes an opportunity. Uchiha Madara can let Nagato see the cruelty of the world. And Uchiha Obito, he is a little more complicated. Compared to Nagato, he and Obito had a very in-depth exchange, and their ideas collided and blended. For 4 full years, he had been a grandmother for 4 years. Therefore, he knows Obito very well, but the deeper he went, the more he felt shaken. What Obito told him was an unprecedented concept. And the most terrible thing is that he thinks it makes sense and it is possible to achieve it. When a right path is placed in front of him, even with his willpower, it is unavoidable. For the first time, Uchiha Madara had doubts about Black Zetsu's project Tasuki no Mi. He is now like Neo, the savior of the Matrix, with 2 pills placed in front of him. One is the beautiful infinite Tsukuyomi, and the other is a difficult but achievable future. Uchiha Madara wants to achieve true peace and create a world without war. The Tsukuyomi that Black Zetsu described to him met his request. So he embarked on this path, but Obito gave him another option. With his wisdom, he naturally understood what Obito said. The ultimate in human development. What a wonderful and dreamy future, and willing to fight for it. A world in which there is no class, no exploitation, no oppression, human beings are self-liberated, each doing his best and taking what he needs. Uchiha Madara let out a long breath. He is now reluctantly relying on chakra delivered by Geto statue to survive. Every move showed his weakness. Master Madara. White Zetsu appeared in front of him. What's up? Uchiha Madara put his thoughts away and looked at White Zetsu. Is Obito any news? After being shaken by Obito, he stopped contacting him and let White Zetsu supervise it instead. Yes. Cloud Shinobi Village is preparing to conduct a Chunin exam with Konoha. Obito and his 2 teammates should participate. Cloud Shinobi Village? It seems that it is more than a Chunin exam. Uchiha Madara's old face showed a wise gaze. He learned about ninjas' every move through White Zetsu, and Cloud Shinobi Village was also under observation. Mostly I want to start a war. White Zetsu smiled. Should Obito wake up from his dreams? Noisy. Uchiha Madara's face was cold. I don't need your reminder. Obito's weakness is too obvious. Regardless of his thoughts, he still values Lin Nohara most. Uchiha Madara closed her eyes. As long as Nohara Lin died in front of Obito in a tragic way, it was enough to drive him crazy. The news of Chunin's exam has been passed to the major ninja villages in the ninja world. Haruki wasn't sure how many people there could be. The joint name of Konoha Village and Cloud Shinobi Village is certainly bluffing, but not all shinobi villages have to give face. The first thing he received was Tsunade's list. Even earlier than Konoha. A total of 7 teams were sent with 21 people, which was not too much compared to Tsunade's size. But Haruki felt that the candidates on the list were still very sincere. In particular, the team represented by Sasori, Yashimaru, and Baki can be called the 3 most outstanding geniuses of Tsunade's younger generation. Naturally, Sasori needless to say. Yashimaru is Kaora's younger brother, a medical ninja. In the original work, he served as Gaara's guard, but because of Luosha's outrageous operation, he assassinated Gaara and blew himself to death, which can be regarded as a tragic figure. Baki, the important figure of Tsunade in the original work, the teachers of Gaara, Tamari, and Kankuro, and the head of the combat unit, has beaten the Moonlight Blast, and his strength is not weak. In addition, there are some good ones. Although he has never appeared in the original game, he has been to Konoha University as an exchange student, and his strength is among the best in Genin. In general, Tsunade is not very good. At the same time, Haruki gets news that 3rd Kazekage and Rosa will be there in person and help if necessary. Teacher. With a prank, a voice suddenly appeared. Haruki looked up and saw Obito hanging upside down on the wall. Obito. Nohara Lin quickly opened the door. Teacher, I'm very sorry. It's okay, this guy wants to scare me, he can practice for another 100 years. Haruki flicked his finger, and chakra formed a stream of air and slammed into Obito's body. Wow. Obito only felt that there was a momentary disorder in the flow of chakra on his body, and he immediately fell to the ground. He lifted his hips to his feet, frowning, idiot. Kakashi walked into the house, passed by Obito, cursed inwardly, and then bowed to Haruki, teacher. He handed over a scroll. The task was done well. Haruki praised after reading the scroll. Although the 3 of them are genin, due to their amazing strength, they have maintained a 100% task completion rate so far. Quite a legend. Konoha's reputation is also very big, and there is a saying that the so-called next Sannin. Hey. Obito had obviously forgotten the pain in his butt, and when Haruki praised him, he suddenly swelled. Haruki couldn't help shaking his head. Sure enough, the country is easy to change, but the nature is hard to change. Even though he has made some changes to Obito, his personality is still not bad from the original. However, relatively speaking, it is much better, at least the critical moment is more reliable. Kakashi knows this. Teacher, we want to take the Chunin exam. Nohara Lin stepped forward and said, she serves as a medical ninja in the team. But because Obito and Kakashi are too strong, they're useless. So she took on other tasks, such as intelligence analysis, task assignment, decision-making and deployment, etc. It's not that she is not strong. In fact, with Haruki's teaching, her medical ninjutsu is not bad. It's just that she doesn't have a clear understanding of it herself. The main reason is that the people she meets daily are either geniuses or jonin. Haruki almost didn't have any time to think about it, so he agreed to Nohara Lin's request. Obito became excited immediately and yelled, the first place must be our team. It's not necessarily. Haruki poured cold water on him. I tell you, don't despise anyone. Besides, I didn't lie to you. As far as I know, there are 3 teams that are not worse than you, but I will not tell you that you need to collect information by yourself. 3? Obito was stunned, obviously not convinced. It was Kakashi, with a hint of excitement in his eyes. Because Hitaki Tsukumo did not commit suicide, his personality has always been relatively normal. Known as a genius, he was naturally a little unconvinced when he heard the respected teacher say so. Okay, teacher. Rin Nohara was the calmest. She nodded earnestly, and after bidding farewell to Haruki, said, let's go to Sister Fulling, she should know a lot of information. Fulling is older than her, but the 2 are considered masters and sisters, so they have a good relationship. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 180 Kakashi's Sword Chi. 2-in-1, 5-year-old Uchiha Shisui felt that he had suffered too much this week. Teacher Haruki assigned to his 2 teammates. In terms of strength, there is nothing too picky about it. Even if Might Guy does not open the 8 inner gates, he surpasses most genin in physical skills. Not to mention Shizune, Tsunade's apprentice, medical ninjutsu is absolutely clear. But Guy's character makes Shisui feel big. Burn your youth. Guy yelled while doing physical training. Such scenes are repeatedly staged. Shisui has evolved to the point where he gets a headache when he hears the word youth. After checking the ninja bag daily, he glanced at Shizune. Standing on the edge of the 3rd exercise field, holding a notebook, recording the changes in Guy's body. As a teammate and a medical ninja, she must have a thorough knowledge of the bodies of the 2 teammates. After a few days of getting along, Shisui spoke highly of her. Of course, if Guy can be a little more normal, his evaluation will be higher. But Shisui felt that this might be more illusory than his goal of becoming Hokage. Yes, his goal is to become Hokage. Although more than 80% of the guys in the ninja school have the same goal, he feels that his hope is greater. After all, his teacher is Haruki, but Shisui does not rely on relationships. After compulsory education, he has a clear understanding of Konoha's future development. When his peers deal with studies and exams, what he likes the most is to delve into the content of politics and history classes. Because of this, he understood that Hokage was nothing but a means. Shisui waited for a while, and when Guy's morning exercise was completed, he greeted two people over. He took out two scrolls and said, 3 days later, the Chunin exam officially started. This is the information I collected. Although it is not detailed enough, it is enough for us. Shizune and Guy naturally took one each. They have long been used to Shisui's genius performance. But at first, they were quite surprised to learn that their teammate was a 5-year-old kid. Shizune even thought that her unreliable teacher Tsunade was deliberately making her difficult. But fortunately, Shisui's strength convinced them. In fact, Sharingan is enough to be called Chunin. This time there are 6 shinobi villages participating in the joint Chunin exam. Iwagakure and Kirigakure of the 5 major villages have made it clear that they will not participate. Therefore, our biggest opponents mainly come from Tsunade and Cloud Shinobi Village, as well as our own team. Shisui looked at the two people and picked the key points. The most troublesome thing about Tsunade is Sasori's 3-person team. Sasori alone is enough to keep us in a mess. Guy doesn't think there is anything, no matter how strong the enemy is, it is only a must on the road to youth. Coupled with his character, so there is no such worry as Shisui. Shizune nodded. She is Tsunade's apprentice and knows more than Shisui. Teacher Haruki really praised Sasori's strength, saying that he is the most talented puppet master in Tsunade's history. And the most important thing is that his puppet was transformed by Mr. Haruki. The power cannot be underestimated, but it is a pity that he has never been underestimated. People have completely seen the methods of puppets, so the information is unknown. Shisui heard the words and thought. It has not been half a year since he had studied with Haruki. He heard about Sasori's fame, but it was the first time he knew about Haruki's evaluation. Rarely produced a sense of crisis. As Haruki's apprentice, if I lose, it will have a negative impact on the teacher. Especially he himself has the arrogance of genius. But after thinking about it, there is no way, there is too little information. No effective countermeasures can be formed against Sasori. Other than Tsunade, there isn't any team that deserves attention. Shisui continued, and among the 20 teams in Cloud Shinobi Village, Darui's team is the most troublesome. Darui is the designated successor of 3rd Raikage. At the same time as the Grandmaster Lightning Style, he has a special blood inheritance limit escape. In addition, his swordsmanship is also very good. And his 2 teammates are also the geniuses of Cloud Shinobi Village. Shi, an almighty ninja with the 3 rare abilities of illusion, medical treatment, and perception. Samui, well-known, calm personality, good at using short sword. Shizune frowned. Although she doesn't know Tsunade and Haruki's plan, since she is aspiring to get the first place, she can't be compared to Cloud Shinobi Village. But she is now a little worried about whether their team can win. And Konoha's team, the two should be very familiar. Before Shisui finished speaking, he saw Guy fighting Spirit High. My life's enemy, Kakashi, finally has a chance to compete. I will definitely let him understand the meaning of youth. Well, Kakashi, Obito and Lin are 3 seniors. Shisui sighed helplessly and said, I don't need to say much about the 3 of them. You should all know the basic information. According to the published test content, the first is a written test, the second is through the Death Forest, and the third is a personal battle. If Senior Guy wants to fight off with Senior Kakashi, he must reach the final level. Written exam. Guy scratched his head when he heard the words, I'm not very good at written exams. I already know this. Shisui is not surprised, he has known 2 of his teammates. What Guy said is not good at it. It's really not a modest, pure theory class, he is in a mess. In the next few days, training during the day and tuition at night. Huh? Guy froze for a moment, a little dumbfounded. Shisui's serious character made him a little unbearable, but in order to fight Kakashi, he also had to devote himself to the youthful blood of learning. The Death Forest outside Konoha built a huge stage in just 2 weeks, and was equipped with various live broadcast facilities. Anyone who has a TV can watch it without having to be there in person. But after all, the perception of live broadcast is different, and everyone is more willing to be there. Haruki and Tsunade saw that the number of people was too large, which affected the normal examination, and they had to take a first-come, first-served approach. The day before the exam, 3rd Raikage finally arrived. He came with 3rd Kazekage. Haruki glanced at the team behind them. He had known the personnel of Tsunade a long time ago. Although the personnel following 3rd Raikage were not clear, they were in his expectation. The future 4th Raikage I, 8 Tails Jinchuriki Killer B, and 2 Tails Jinchuriki will be held by Wooden Golem. It can be described as an outburst. Haruki has some doubts, is Cloud Shinobi Village really so confident? They are not afraid that the entire army will be annihilated, leading to the complete failure of Cloud Shinobi Village without a leader? While thinking about it, Tsunade stepped forward to greet 3rd Kazekage and 3rd Raikage. The 3 persons are of equal status. After a brief greeting, arrange a place to live. At the same time, the prosperity of Konoha shocked them all. Haruki didn't say anything. His identity is just an assistant to Hokage, and his strength is unknown, so no one pays too much attention to him. With the arrival of the personnel, the joint Chunin examination was officially established. Early morning. In a clearing in the Death Forest, nearly 300 desks were set up. All genins will have an open-air written test. On the stage in front of the desk, the newly appointed Fire Country Master Oda Kensho sat in the middle. In nominal terms, the status of the 5 big names is higher than that of the 5 big shadows. After all, the 5 major villages are actually employment organizations. The person who pays the money is the uncle. This sentence is not excessive. It's normal to give up some etiquette. To his left and right are 3rd Raikage and Tsunade. As for 3rd Kazekage, it is on the right of 3rd Raikage. In addition, there are many nobles and wealthy merchants. The Chunin exam is not only an exam, but also a demonstration of strength and heritage. The better the performance, the better the commission. I announce that the Chunin exam will now begin. Kenjong Oda stood up and declared to the numerous genins with vigor. He can be said to have reached the pinnacle of his life during this time. No matter who it is, he cannot influence his opinions. This solitary attitude made him float, and he began to refute some of Namikaze Minato's suggestions. Soon 9 invigilators appeared. 3 Chunin were sent from each of the 3 villages to maintain order. Of course, the 9 teachers also understand the rules. The written test of the Chunin exam is not really a test of genin's ability to do questions, but the ability to plagiarize and not be discovered by the teacher. The test paper is made by Haruki, but it did not blend in with the ideological education class. To be honest, Konoha genin who is taking the exam now has all passed the first round of compulsory education, which is much better than the original. Even if it is a simple test, he is sure that most of the students will pass. But other ninja villages are different. Taking this situation into consideration, Haruki referred to the education of Tsunade and Cloud Shinobi village and arranged the examination questions. Because the rules are so simple, no one asks questions. The broad expanse was suddenly quiet, and only the rubbing of pen and paper was heard. Only a few minutes later, the people in the stands noticed that some students had started cheating. The stands where they are located are condescending and have the advantage of position. And the worst is Chunin, not to mention the 3 big shadows. There is nothing to hide from cheating, but it doesn't matter if they see it, as long as the monitoring teacher doesn't notice it. Haruki gazes in search. His 3 apprentices, Kakashi, Obito and Nohara Lin. All were filling out the test papers seriously, and no one cheated. And the other team, Shisui, Shizune and Guy, only Guy tried to finish the test paper with Shisui's help. Haruki glanced around, and there was nothing wrong with the teams he valued. Just when he thought this written test would end like this, she from Cloud Shinobi village took action. The people in the stands suddenly looked at the yellow-haired boy. There was a faint light of thunder from his fingers. Jump quickly in the air, and then disappear. It is lightning-style illusion. Haruki raised his eyebrows slightly, and the 3 Konoha genin on his right immediately struck him. He misread the questions on the test paper completely, and the answers he wrote were naturally specious. He recalled the information he had read beforehand. The Greek of Cloud Shinobi village. The original game served as the captain of the sensing force in the 4th Ninja World War, and even used illusions to interfere with Ten-Tail's sight. You can see the extraordinary from his illusion just now. None of the 9 Chunin teachers noticed. The genius of Cloud Shinobi village is really extraordinary. 3rd Kazekage glanced at 3rd Raikage and said with emotion, "This control is far beyond ordinary Chunin." Haha, praise. 3rd Raikage smiled heartily. Their conversations were controlled and did not let the genins who took the exam hear them. However, it's not that no one noticed. Tsunade shook his head and said. 3rd Raikage smiled, and he suddenly noticed the red-haired boy on the left. Sasori of Red Sand. He was the first genin to perceive illusion. As a puppet master, his sensitivity and control to chakra can be regarded as the strongest among the students present. She concealed it from other people, but couldn't hide it from him. No, there are a few people besides him. Sasori glanced at Uchiha Obito and Kakashi, and he, who was planning to shoot, stopped the flow of chakra. 3rd Kazekage breathed a sigh of relief. He was a little worried that Sasori's shot would arouse 3rd Raikage's suspicion. A sharp sword aura flew from Kakashi's fingertips. Without a trace, it is more concealed than Zai's previous shots. With a click, Zai's desk cracked at first. Who? His handsome face was all gloomy. Noisy in the examination room, 2 points deducted. The most recent invigilator gave punishment with a calm face. She had to suppress her anger. Everyone has 10 points, and once they are all deducted, they lose their qualifications for the exam. The new table was repositioned, but after the accident just now, the genins immediately became nervous. Hope. His teammate, Samui, a girl with a plump body and a delicate appearance, pointed to Kakashi. She suddenly understood who the previous attack came from. He is a new generation of genius who knows Kakashi, the son of Konoha's White Fangya. The fact that his illusion can be detected by him proves that his strength is not weaker than himself. He sighed, and his hands became imprinted. The thunderlight beneath his feet instantly extended. His target is Lin Nohara. But before he arrived, Obito turned his head, and the Scarlet 3 Tomo Sharingan made him startled slightly. There was blood in his eyes. Darui sighed, and 1,000 books accidentally dropped, just stinging she. The illusion is unlocked. She gasped and sweated out of shock. Kakashi. Seeing that Nozomi had escaped from her ninjutsu, Obito called Kakashi. Kakashi remained silent. He knew that Obito was a little angry because of the attack on Lin. But he happened to be too. Obito is mostly fire-style ninjutsu, not suitable for development. And his Kendokan. Kakashi glanced at the position of the Invigilator, 10 fingers like 10 long swords, moving at a mysterious frequency, forming an invisible phantom. In the next moment, dozens of subtle sword oars, like silver needles, rushed towards she at an extremely fast speed. Darui, the strongest, was the first to notice, can't help taking a breath. His hands clasped together, and the thin water vapor gushed out like a refracted laser. Loud sound. The two collided and could no longer be hidden. The vibration of the desk and the ground. In an instant, the 9 Invigilators suppressed this confrontation. Darui looked ugly. It was not that he was discovered. But in this collision, 3 teams in Cloud Shinobi Village were disqualified because they passed out. Someone else intervened. Darui frowned. He clearly felt that at the moment of the collision, someone forced the center to deflect. The written test continues. The stands are a bit lively. The moment the results came out, 3rd Raikage looked a little embarrassed. I didn't expect that the first ninja out of the game was his Cloud Shinobi Village. This made him feel awkward. Raikage, this is just the beginning. Why are you so excited? Tsunade smiled lightly. Don't worry, in my Konoha, any injuries they get can be healed. 3rd Raikage snorted and stopped speaking. But he glanced at 3rd Kazekage. Darui didn't see it, but they were very clear in the stands. The 3rd is Sasori of the Red Sand. His puppet's silk thread came in randomly, disturbing the direction. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.